should be good now. YouTube's being stubborn. If YouTube wants to continue being stubborn, then I'll let YouTube continue being stubborn. I'm not worried about it anymore. For some reason, the stream is not going to YouTube. So, sorry to YouTube chat and those who would like to tune in on YouTube. Does not seem to be the case today. Don't know why it's not uploading the stream to YouTube, but it is what it is. I'll have to get it figured out. Also, thank you for the follow. So, maybe the YouTube stuff will get ironed out, but may have to skip a week on the YouTube side. I wanted all of the videos there to be uploaded correctly because they would be all in one spot, but seems to be that luck is not on my side this time. Rivera is telling me that the YouTube stream is working. I don't see it anywhere. But if he says it's working, he says it's working. Let me try YouTube again. So it seems to be that the YouTube is working, but just not for me. That's a little odd. But anyway, with that in mind, we can continue on with the stream. It doesn't show up on my YouTube channel, but I guess it's okay now. It shows up on there. It wasn't showing up on my YouTube channel. I have it now. I can see it. Hello YouTube chat. Thank you. I don't know why it wasn't working because I disconnected and reconnected the YouTube to my streaming service. So we should be good from here on. Anyway, let's get down to business. Today was Le Mans qualifier. Very big day for endurance racing and sports car racing. Porsche with 6 cars in the qualifier, and Porsche was 6 cars at Le Mans this year, and only 1 car made it into hot pole or hyperpole. That is insane. You have 6 cars and only 1 car makes it into hyperpole. And the car that makes it into hyperpole is not even your factory car. It's a bit odd to me. And Jordan Taylor, one of my personal favorite GT drivers, the only one of my favorite GT drivers that is at Le Mans, because the other, Mauro Engel, drives for Mercedes, and Mercedes can't go to Le Mans, or because I guess they don't want to enter in the full WEC championships, which is a little weird, but, you know, rules are rules. But anyway, so our championship, something I wanted to bring up that we haven't spent much time on recently. We're about halfway through the season, so I guess we should look and see where we're standing in terms of our championships. In GT2, we are looking at Luis in P1 with 232 points, and then Craters in P2, which Craters is going to be out of the rest of this season, so that's pretty much redundant. Luis has a large lead in the GT2 series. The bigger battle is the battle for the GT4 championship. Mind as the GT4 championship is where all the action is tonight. Also, welcome Jossum, welcome Let's Get It, thank you guys for the follows. Yeah, I'm gonna work on a better way to do the championship standings and things like that in the future. You guys saw in the Discord I asked for screenshots. Me asking for screenshots was so I could have a background for the championship standing screen. But I just took my standard screen and removed the game source. But anyway, got about 15 minutes left in free practice tonight here at Oulton Park, a track that I do not know much about. Will be completely honest, do not know much about Oulton Park. But what I can tell you, there's technically 17 turns around here. The first turn, Hull Corner. which we will be coming into momentarily, with Great House here, with Caligari giving chase. But as we come across the line, down the hill towards Great Hall Corner, which is a mid-speed 90-degree right turn, essentially 90-degree, before we head to the kink of Denton's turn 2, and then the also kind of mid-speed. There's a braking zone there, but you're not slowing down too much. The turn 3 of Cascades. Then we head down the Lakeside Straight before the phallically shaped hairpin, very similar to that of Lime Rock, as we come through turn number 4 of Island Bend, then a hard braking zone down for the Old Shell Corner. A little bit of camber on the inside as we come around the exit towards turn 6, a long right-hander before the very quick kink chicane of Britons, comprising of turns 7, 8, and 9. And then down the Hilltop Straight before we head to another chicane of Hislips of turns 10, 11, and 12. See if we can get on board with Caligari to complete the lap. There is Caligari coming out of Hislips, and then Knickerbrook turn 12, and then down through the kinks of Clay Hill, and then Water Tower before we come down to Druids. It wouldn't be a British track if we didn't have a turn called Druids. And then once we come out of Druids, down the Warwick Bridge Straight, as I'm assuming that's the bridge we just come under there, and then Lodge Corner, technically the final corner on the track, but the kink here of Deer Leap does technically count as the final corner, and then we come across to complete a lap. The times here are going to be very all over the place, as the drivers do not have a ton of experience here. There are some drivers that do have experience here. Some may be the locals, as Darnell currently in P1 and GT2. One of our friends from across the pond racing in this USA series. They are currently looking at times in the 34s, the 1-minute 34s in GT2, as Darnell is about to come out of the penultimate corner through the final kink across the line before we go down the hill for turn 1. The gap between the laps, as we have seen with the different tracks that we've been at through this series, the gap that we're looking at right now is about 8 seconds. Last week at Laguna Seca, that gap was down around 6 seconds. Much closer than we were used to seeing, with gaps anywhere from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. Here we go back up a little bit, back to 8 seconds, as we would expect the times for the GT4s to be somewhere around the 42-43 second mark. Still inching ever so much closer to the end of this practice session before we get on with our split qualifier, which has been a spectacle in these races. The split qualifier bringing some antics through the GT4, or from the GT4s. Not so much antics from the GT2s, as they go out first and don't have much of an option for certain qualifying strategies, but something you'll see in the GT4s. As the GT2s go out, some GT4s or GT4 drivers who feel like they have enough time to warm up their tires during their qualifying session before they get to their flying laps and before they run out of time, will pull to the end of the pit lane at the very beginning of the GT2 qualifier to get themselves set up for that optimal track position leaving the pit lane. Track position in these higher population league races is very crucial, especially on tight tracks like this where you're not going to have too much room on track to separate. As the more cars that we have on track, the less space there is, the less opportunity that you have for a clean track, for a clean lap. And then as those qualifying sessions move down ever so much closer to the 0-second mark, it is just going to get crazier and crazier as everyone is pushing for laps. The tighter the track is, the more at risk you are of having your lap compromised by another driver, something that you don't want to happen, but it definitely does happen. As we are currently spectating with Drain, the leading GT4 at the close to the end of this 1 hour qualifier or 1 hour practice session, not qualifying just yet. As eventually that KTM GT4 comes into view, heading down the Lakeside Straight before the old shell corner, but peeling off to the left-hand side of the track to abandon this lap, go back to the pit lane, and try again. We have been pretty regularly having new drivers in these sessions, and I believe Wayne, this is not his first race with TRC. That first race was last Sunday at Bathurst when we had that crazy rain out of nowhere with the randomness sliders all the way down. So, still somehow we got rain, which I didn't complain. It made my job very, very interesting. But Wayne, one of our newcomers in this series, Patton, has raced in this series, but one of the newer drivers in TRC, coming through the old shell corner right now. Patton giving us some flashers as well. Greathouse, another newer driver in this season. He's been with us for a couple races now, as we see him witnessing a little bit of the bumpiness of the track there as he lets Harrell go by, and then is about to pop back over to the pit lane. Douglas, another new driver in this series. I do not believe that this is his first race in the KTM series, and definitely not his first race in TRC, as he was with us on Sunday for the GT3, GT2 series at Bathurst with that rain. But Douglas showing that he is a formidable opponent, as he is bringing some pace. Less than half a second off of the leading GT4. It's not qualifying just yet, but the track is at optimum time, or optimum conditions, so we should start seeing those qualifying style lap times. The track is cooling as it is getting darker, so it is not going to be as fast as it would be, say, midday, where you would have that temperature to really get those tires nice and sticky. But Mikey surpassing Drain by about 0.2 up into the pole position. Provisional pole position doesn't really even count yet. It is still the practice session. So we've got about 7 minutes left before we get started with qualifying. And for those who this may be your first time tuning into the broadcast, we do a split qualifier in the GT2 GT4 series, as there is a great enough difference in speed that you would have a hindrance from the GT2s or the GT4s on each other, as Mikey goes a little bit too deep into the chicane here of turns, I believe, 8, 9, and 10. Or 7, 8, and 9. I don't really know this track that well, and it will become very apparent later on in the stream. The chicane of turns 7, 8, and 9. Brittany's. See how well I remember that later on. But anyway, anybody in the chat who's been keeping up with Le Mans, I would be very interested in hearing who you are supporting for the 24-hour race this weekend, what you've thought of the practice session so far, what you've thought of the qualifying session so far. I personally am rooting for a Cadillac win, and I could see the Ferrari, the number 50 Ferrari with, I believe that is Giovinazzi in that car. I could definitely see that car winning, as cars that win typically do it more than once. And the, I believe, number 3 Cadillac, as Mikey's showing his drifting skills on stream. keeping that car on track. Those tires are definitely going to be hot, but a little bit of a initial D style, dipping the tires in the gutter, gutter run, getting those tires to the inside of that curb. But in LMP2, I feel is where the action is going to be. You've got the AO Racing effort with Spike. You've got the Inter-Europol effort, which is that very, very legendary yellow and green LMP2. And then you have the United Autosport number 23, which is my favorite LMP2 to win, as you have Ben Keating and Nolan Siegel in that car. Both absolute GOATs. Greatest of ever in endurance racing. Both drivers that drive about everything as much as they can. Keating, some of you may remember back at Daytona early this year, drove 2 cars in one race. He drove a GTP. I don't remember exactly which GTP. If I had to guess, I would say it was a Porsche. But drove both the GTP and the United Autosport LMP2 that he drove. I don't believe that he won in either class, but did race in both classes in one race. Not allowed in the World Endurance Championship that the 24-hour Le Mans is coordinated with, but still a feat of its own. The number 23 LMP2 is going to be a car to watch for the race this weekend. The, I believe, number 14 AO Racing LMP2, aka Spike, as it's part of the Spike, Rexy, and Roxy trio. I would be very much on the lookout for Spike to finish high. Spike is running in the smaller Pro-Am class of LMP2, so they have a higher likelihood of winning that specific category than the overall LMP2, but they are not out of the fight for overall LMP2. And then in GTs, my Corvettes are running decent times. I do believe that there are some Corvettes in Hyperpole. And the Proton Mustang, I believe it's the Proton Mustang. I know one of the Mustangs is doing very well. The Lexus are having some issues. I know that Bush is going to be very, very sad to hear that, as Mikey goes straight at a right-hander. Not the optimal line, as he rejoins the track. Just a little over 2 minutes left in this practice session before we get started with our split qualifier. Mikey with some contact by Wayne. I don't know if he was trying to get out of the way there or what, but it's a good thing it's just practice. But still, all contact is preferred to be avoided. We don't usually see too much, but here at this track, especially with the unfamiliarity of a lot of these drivers with this track, I do not believe that it is going to be a rare sight tonight. Not too many of the GT2 cars showing up tonight. Vasquez is making his way in. Vasquez, one of the top contenders in the GT2 series, as Darnell is putting up a good fight in that series. Both of these classes have had multiple winners. There has been no one to sweep the entire series. And especially in the GT4 series, there are multiple contenders for the top spot when the checkered flag falls. Douglas, currently in P3 with Bird just behind. Now, he is ahead of one previous race winner in the GT4 series, in the GT4 class. Bird won his first race with us at Watkins Glen, and I believe also won a race at Brands Hatch, if I remember correctly. I may not remember correctly, but I do believe that he won a race at Brands Hatch. If he did not, he still ran very well. And if Douglas is able to out-qualify or if Douglas is able to out-qualify Bird, that would put him in a very, very good spot for bronze points. A little bit too late in this championship to be scored highly in this championship, but you never know. But at the same time, still a great result. Douglas, the snake in the bushes tonight for a potential race win. As the clock has rounded down to 0, we are now awaiting the last few cars on valid laps to get across the line as we are on board with Viana here. Also the number 87 of Rowan. As Viana abandons the lap, Rowan still on a valid lap, waiting on them to come across the line. Getting a little bit of connection issue, but it shouldn't be anything too crazy as Rowan goes wide. And then coming through the final corner as we're having definitely a little bit of connection issue from Rowan, as I believe Rowan is dropping out. Not going to end the session with that lap. It could be the number 31 of Wayne. Wayne abandoning the lap there. And then we also have Wilson and Jennings, I believe, in GT2. Jennings having finished a lap. Wilson, I believe, being the last car on a valid lap here. As we are waiting for the final cars in this practice session to come across the line, finish their laps, and bring us to the start of the qualifying session. And as Wilson comes across the line, that will end the practice session. As we are now started with GT2 qualifying. As let's go ahead and get our first onboard here with Harris. As we will go on board for the out lap and the first lap. KTM GT2 roar to life as it gets these tires warmed up. Something with these GT2 cars, for those of you who do not know, they do not have tire blankets or tire warmers. What that means is when they come out of the pits, they are on ice cold tires. And they are going to take some time to warm those tires up, bring the temperature up. As the warmer the tires are, the more malleable they are, the more grip they have. Hard braking into the second chicane section here. Very crucial to hit these chicanes right, hit the curbs right. As you hit one curb too hard, it is going to greatly disrupt the car, taking out the pylon on the inside there. And then abandoning this lap, trying to keep the car pointed straight, will just barely do so. Harris is now coming up to the final section of corners here. Turn 16 of Lodge Corner before we go to Deer Leap. This tight little kink up here before we come across the line, across the pit straight, to start the first valid lap of the race. Down the hill into Old Hall Corner, missing the apex slightly, but floating it out to the outside nicely as we come down the avenue. And then the kink of 2 of Denton's before the slight braking zone into the turn 3 of Cascades. A dipper going downhill, a little bit of camber on the inside before we get to the Lakeside Straight, heading towards turn 4 of Island Bend. A little bit blind, you can't quite see the road until you're absolutely on it. Then the hard braking zone for the right hand, hard, heavy camber of Old Shell Corner. And then very quickly back on the throttle before we're back on the brakes through turn 6, hard braking into the chicane of turns 7, 8, and 9. Coming out trying to carry as much speed as you can. That is the Britain chicane before we get onto the Hilltop Straight. Heading down the hill for another chicane, this one a little bit bigger than the previous of turns 10, 11, and 12. the Hislop chicane before we get to this awkward right-hander of turn 12 known as Knickerbrook, and then we head up the hill over the kink of turn 13 Clay Hill, and then down the hill through a tight section of 14 and 15 Water Tower and Druids, and then the Warwick Bridge straight before we once again head down to turn 16 Lodge Corner, the final hard braking zone of the lap. Not quite as much camber and a hill that is going up and away from you with a little bit of off camber before we are hard back on the power through the chicane, the almost chicane of turn 17 Deerleaf, and then come across the line. Harris with our first valid lap of this race, of this qualifying session so far, as we pop back over to our regular overlays. Coming through into Island Bend, Harris still on top, Darnell 2 seconds behind, Rowan up into P2 for now. I believe this lap did go invalid, that lap did go invalid, but go ahead and ride on board. We'll see if Rowan can bring this lap back around. Rowan with Vieira and Darnell in tow. Actually, it's Rowan riding behind Vieira. Looked very much like Darnell's cars. They have all three chosen that seemingly same shade of blue. It's actually Vaiana up ahead, not Vieira. We've got a lot of V's in this series, but Vieira is not racing tonight. As Rowan comes through the chicanes of turns 10, 11, and 12. And then up the hill for the kink before you go down the hill for the kink. Into what is technically Druids, but hashtag not my Druids. And then we head into Lodge Corner. That little bit of camber on the inside before you go kind of off camber, throwing you to the outside. And Rowan will come to try and set another lap as we come across the line. Rowan now down into P3, still on the podium. Darnell up into P1 with a 34.4. That is the kind of lap time that we are looking for, and we do have optimum track. It is earlier in the day than previous, as Breakfast eclipses Rowan and knocks Rowan off of the podium spot, still on the second row. And then Vasquez, just a second behind Darnell. Vasquez and Darnell, two of the top contenders in the GT2 class. As Darnell just ahead of Vasquez. Vasquez still the leader in the GT2 championship, as we have just a couple minutes left in this qualifying session. We're just a couple laps in, and these drivers have 2 more laps to get a lap in. As we go check with the GT4s, they are queued up all over the pit lane. Those drivers who are wanting that first bit of track. There's not as many of them as we previously have seen in these qualifying sessions, but Wagner, Douglas, Fernandez, who is the other one, as Vaiana comes across the line to set a lap. Vaiana did not set a lap, invalid on that lap. As Mikey pulls up to the end of the queue, as we have just a couple minutes left in GT2 qualifying. Drain up in this bunch of cars waiting for a spot. Eggy in this train of cars. And it was Harrell, the car looking for the inside line, the alternate route to get out ahead of the rest of the field, as Wagner and Douglas also up there at the front. Currently, as they stand, Darnell just 2/10 off of the time of Vasquez. Harris up into P3. Rowan back into P4, has gone back past Breakfast. The next car is across the line. Harris will have this lap and one more. May potentially have two more laps. Harris needs to be on this one and run another one with no mistakes. We'll have 15 seconds to spare before the GT4 start rolling out. Once this clock hits 10 minutes, the qualifying session is over. Rowan looking to come set another lap here. This will be Rowan's final lap. All of the cars, Darnell and back, as Darnell is going to start his final lap to buy some insurance on that pole position. Vasquez looking to also improve, but this will be Vasquez's next to last lap. Vasquez will get one more. Rowan will get one more. All of these drivers on track will get one more lap. Darnell goes invalid on this lap, needs to try and get back, but will not have enough time. Darnell is going to be solid in his finishing position, will not be able to improve. Vasquez will have a little bit more time. He's got enough time to set one more flying lap to try to take that pole position away. Is it enough on this lap? It is not. One more time for Vasquez to try and take this pole position away. Rowan on another attempt, his final attempt to improve. And Breakfast also on their final attempt to improve. Harris will come across the line for their final lap, and we will see if Harris will improve. 6/10 or right under 7/10 behind the current pole position of Darnell. Does Harris improve? Harris does improve by only about 2/10, 1.17 seconds. Not enough to move up in position, not enough to move past Vasquez, but is currently on the pole with 0 seconds left in GT4 qualifying. The laps are done. The GT4 qualifying has begun. Rowan still on a lap. Breakfast still on a lap. This is the fight for 5th position or more, as Rowan only needs a 10th to move up into 4th place. Does Rowan have the time? Rowan not improving on that lap. Does Breakfast have enough time to demote Rowan to P6? Does he have enough time to demote Viana to P5? We shall see. Breakfast still pushing on this lap as the stream of blue icons comes flowing out of the pit lane. That is your GT4s as Breakfast comes to finish the GT2 qualifying session. Will Breakfast improve? Still liking the lap, still staying on it as Breakfast comes across the line. What will it be? It is enough for P4, passing both Viana and Rowan. Wagner, the leading GT4, will lead the field out to the line, have the most clean air, and will be towing the rest of the field behind. Not too much room for slipstream here, but there will be some available. But will the arrow wash as I see Douglas opening up the gap to Wagner. Douglas trying to follow through. Fernandez and Elizondo all following through in this GT4 qualifying. Fernandez, I believe, a first time potentially in the GT4 series. I may be wrong. I think Fernandez may have been in this series before, but Wagner, should be the first GT4 to set a lap as they come down to turn 3 before they head to the first little straightaway section, or the first long straightaway section, about the longest flat out section of the track. Wagner breaking away from Douglas slightly. Douglas, you remember back in practice, was P3. Does Douglas have enough to keep it on the podium? Wagner looking to have speed in this session as well, but Drain and Mikey were the top contenders in the practice session. Does Elizondo come into this battle? Do we have a newcomer? moving the old heads out of the way, the drivers who have been here since the very beginning. Douglas looking to upset some drivers tonight, looking to break some hearts. Does Douglas have the pace? As they come through the quote-unquote druids, hashtag not my druids, and then head into Lodge Corner for the first time. Wagner maybe going too far out to the outside and invalidating the lap. Actually, most of all drivers on invalid laps. Douglas, the first to set a valid lap. Drain currently P1, Douglas 9/10 behind, but currently P2. Wagner currently in P3. Eggy moving up into P4 as Eggy puts it sideways across Elizondo, and Elizondo having to abandon that lap. There's enough time left to get back out on track and improve the time, as Eggy is waiting for the rest of the field to cycle around. Drain up into P1, Bird into P2, Douglas demoted to P3, but still currently on the podium. Good result so far for the newcomer, keeping up with Wagner. Wagner currently P4, though. Is Douglas faster than Wagner? Is Douglas getting a little bit of slipstream help from Wagner down these straightaway sections? Looking to see if Wagner will improve. Wagner likely to improve. As we come up the hill for the kink, then down the hill to the kink. Douglas carrying a lot of speed here. As Douglas does look to be faster than Wagner, or is just capitalizing on that slipstream. We'll see what Douglas's lap looks like. It's not as good of a finish as Wagner's lap, as Wagner gets a much better exit out of the final corner. Douglas not improving by much. The margin's still the same, though. We will see as Mikey moves up into pole position in GT4. This is going to be a spicy one tonight. Mikey currently in P1. Bird currently in P1. Bird just taking the pole position away from Mikey. Bird showing us that he has the pace, and this seems to be one track that he is going to be good at. Won his first race with TRC, the first round of this series at Watkins Glen. Will we be seeing another win from Bird here tonight? Bird currently the pole sitter. Provisional pole in GT4. Does Bird have enough to hold on to it? It's not by too much. It's right at 0.3 of a second, with Mikey just behind. Drain half a second behind. Douglas with a lot of time to make up, but currently sitting P4, still chasing Wagner as Wagner's dropping down the order. Norman cut in between Douglas and Wagner. Douglas needs a better exit of the final corner. Once again, does not get as good of an exit as Wagner. We'll see if Douglas improves on this lap, though. We'll see if Wagner improves. Wagner improves. Douglas up into P2, just 0.2, or right at 1.5 behind that of Bird. Douglas showing that he has got the pace to bring the competition to these older drivers who have been in here since the very, very beginning of this series. Douglas showing some serious speed in the GT4 class tonight. Just a couple more laps to get this pole position if Douglas is going to do it. Bird needs to buy some insurance here. Coming across the line, we'll have this lap and one more, as the majority of the field will have this lap and one more. Bird not improving on that lap. Douglas taking it to the pits. I think that is going to be it for Douglas. Currently on P2. Abandoning the lap and keeping it in the pit lane. I don't think Douglas may have enough time to get back out there for one more flying lap, but I am not sure if they are going to. Bird currently still on pole with Mikey, just a few tenths behind. Mikey looking to take that pole position away. Harold jumping up into P3 as the times are very, very close in the GT4 series. The points championship very close in the GT4 series, but the qualifying has been a very crucial part of this season, as a little bit of contact between that of Harold and Wayne. Harold should have one more lap to get back around, but I am not sure if he will. Harold currently in P3. Douglas still in P2, will not improve as he will not run another lap. Bird will have one more try to buy some insurance. Harold, Mikey, Drain, Wagner, Elizondo, Norman, all drivers that are capable of putting this car up on the front row. Will any of these drivers improve? Norman moves up one spot into P7 in GT4, not up into the front rows, but does have another opportunity to improve. Bird now on the final lap of his qualifying session, looking to buy his insurance here. Improved slightly, but not by much. Harold looking to improve, looking to take that pole position away or displace Douglas back to the second row in GT4. Mikey also looking to improve. The GT4 starting front rows, the top 5 in GT4, at least in terms of qualifying, has been a complete toss-up all the way through the entire season. It looks to be like it may be the same case tonight, as Mikey now coming through the final corner. Abandoning the lap, not going to improve there. Car number 19 of Merkel looking to set a lap will bring the into their qualifying session. As Merkel comes across the line, it's still valid. What will it be? Moving up, improving. Patton not setting a lap. Short coming across shortly. No pun intended. Car number 99 of Wagner bringing it into their qualifying session, currently P6. Car number 12 will not improve. Car number 713, I believe, car number 713 of Wilson coming across the line, looking to improve on their time, does, up into P6. Actually, not up into P6, it may be P8. Car number 103 of Bird finishing their qualifying session, still currently holding on to the pole position. Fernandez coming across the line, looking to improve. Will improve, displacing Atwell and Merkel down a position. Car number 66 of Atwell coming next, looking to take that spot back, but running very wide and validating the lap. Will have to back out of it there. Car number 15 of Elizondo chasing just behind that of Miller, and Harrell also still on a flying lap. Elizondo looking to improve, car that we've seen on the front row many times. Will Elizondo improve? Elizondo does not improve, and Harold does not have enough time to finish the lap. As it comes down to the end, the clock ticks down to 0. How did they finish in P1 and GT2 and the overall leader Darnell with Vasquez to his side on the front row? Harris in P3, Breakfast P4, Viana P5, Rowan P6, Jennings P7, and Winter P8. I believe both late entries in this session. In GT4, Bird in P1, Douglas, the newcomer, first race in the KTM series, up into P2. Could be looking for a good result, could be running, or could be looking for a runaway win here. It would be a very good sight to behold. A first-time driver, a rookie in TRC and a rookie in this series, taking home a win. All the best to Harrell. All the best to Douglas. Harrell in P3, Mikey P4, Drain P5, Wagner P6, Norman P7, Wilson P8, Elizondo P9, Ditto P10, Eggy P11, Miller P12, Fernandez P13, Atwell P14, Merkel P15, Greathouse P16, Short P17, Caligari P18, Wayne P19, and bringing up the rear, Patton in P20, not setting a lap time. So, the field is set. The pieces are where they belong. How will the game play out? There's only one way to find out, and that is to stick around and see as we have our race format for tonight. And I believe the race format for tonight is the typical race format of the two 10-minute sprints with a 40-minute longer endurance race. Not necessarily endurance, but it is a longer sprint. It is essentially 4 sprints, 2 10-minute sprints and a 40-minute sprint. And yes, it is 2 10-minute sprints. A 7 p.m. start for race 1, a 10 a.m. start for race 2, and a 7 p.m. start for race 3. Race 3, we will start to look at a little bit of tire wear as we come down to the end of the session. And as the field gets set, we will sit on with our overall leader for now before we get started here with the formation lap about 2 minutes before we get engines fired and rolling here in the KTM Cannonball series. If you're new to TRC, have not seen anything that we have done, have not tuned into any of the broadcasts, you can click the link that pops up in chat every now and then to get access to the Discord for the series. Sorry, it seems to be that we have a server reset, and that I believe that may give us a short quali once more. The drivers get one more shot to get that lap in. We may have had a driver error. Some people not able to get in, or the session has been bugged in a little way, but we are going to go again here shortly. I believe the I believe the server reset is going to be to get rid of the previous server settings, as we will get a little bit of a restart here. As any second now, the server will reset, and I believe we may get a half-time qualifying, or we may get a completely new qualifying and do it all over again. And that would make it very, very interesting to see if those drivers can improve. A second chance qualifier, if you will.
30 seconds.
As it seems to be, we are going again.
20 seconds.
Their engines fired, but they will not be rolling, as we are about to get a server reset here any second.
10 seconds.
As we are awaiting a little bit of commentary from the TRC admin, as there we go, we see some people dodging out of the session, as no one seems to be moving quite yet. We do have some drivers rolling, but the server will be getting reset here very shortly. Any second now, the server will be reset, I believe. I still see drivers moving forward, but I am not sure what is going on, as we have not gotten the server. There is the server reset, so give us And we are back into the session. Sorry about the minor technical difficulty, not on my side, but on the TRC side, as we will get this qualifying session rolling once again, as it is a 5-minute practice, as we will get to sit around and hang out a little bit longer. Oh, it's all good, Salty, don't worry about it. Thank you for the cheer, Colleen. I greatly appreciate it, and I don't think anyone has ever done that before. Or I think you may have done it previously. Just one bit, but anything helps. Greatly appreciated. If you would like to seriously consider supporting the stream, I would be greatly appreciative if you would use a Twitch Prime subscription. It is something that you get free with a Amazon Prime subscription. It allows you one free subscription to any streamer that you would like on the platform. If you do that, I get a little bit of monetary gain out of that. I get a little bit of dinero, a couple pesos if you would. And you get no ads on these streams whenever you open up the streams. I don't run ads on the streams very much anyway, so it would help me out if you would use a Twitch Prime subscription. If you have one, if you were on the YouTube side, the best way to support me is just by subscribing, as in order for me to get any sort of monetary gain on the YouTube side, it has to come from getting like 500 subscribers and like 3 million hours watched or something like that. It's quite a lot. As we will be getting started here very shortly for another qualifying. I think it is going to be a half qualifying. It may be a 5-minute and 5-minute. It is going to shuffle up the field, and it may cause some chaos. Definitely going to cause some controversy, as some drivers may not get to set the lap that they were looking for, but it could be the saving grace for another, as one man's bad luck may be another man's good luck. Only one way to find out, and that is to stick around for the qualifying session. We will be racing here very shortly, as soon as possible. As we have just one lap left. Only some takers for a little bit of extra practice. Douglas looking to set a lap here. A 1:45.2. I don't know exactly how that stacked up previously. It seems like it was a little bit off the pace, as it may just be the outlap. It is time for Quali Part 2, Eggy. And those of you in the chat, as Eggy did there, if you would like to use the emotes that I have put into the Twitch chat, I would greatly appreciate it. There is a Team Lime emote, there is a TRC USA emote, there is a TRC EU emote. There are flags of all different sorts. I believe there's a box emote in there. And the more subscriptions and the more followers that I get, the more emotes that I can add, the more opportunity that I have to improve that side of the stream. Once again, thank you to those of you who are tuning in on YouTube. Greatly appreciate all of the support. As the clock has round down to 0, we are just waiting for the last of the drivers to get back to the start-finish line as Douglas abandons the lap. Just one more car out on track, as it is the 44 of Patton. But if Patton invalidates this lap, then that should bring the checkered flag for the practice session out before we get ready to go again for the qualifying session. Little bit of a shakeup in format that caused the error, as we should now be getting started with the qualifying session. The entire field in the pit lane, and any second now we should be kicking over to qualifying. Any second now. And just waiting for the session to kick over for quali. And I believe it is due to the fact that we have some yellow flags out from return to garages. For those of you who are listening to the stream and you are out on track, if you return to the garage while causing a yellow flag, when you get to the garage you will still have that yellow flag, so you need to click drive and then once again go back to the garage to get rid of that yellow flag. If you would do that, it also gets rid of the yellow flag that is waved at the marshal stand at pit lane and through sector 1 and 3. And we are now good with qualifying, and it is a full re-qualifying, as we will be running qualifying all over. Harris and Darnell both jumping at the bit to get out of the line, get out of the pit lane. Both cars pushing very, very hard as they get a second chance. Go buy a lottery ticket, because you do not get chances like this very often, as just a slight oversight has caused us to run a second qualifier here, and now it is a chance to see, you know what the competition is going to bring, you know what you need to run. It is up to you to do the work and to get that lap in. Quali 1 went by very, very quickly. We'll see what Quali 2 looks like, as you could call this maybe our hyper pole in the spirit of Le Mans this weekend. Also, once again, any of you who have been keeping up with Le Mans, type your predictions in chat. I would be very appreciative to hear the predictions that you have for your Le Mans finishes, who you want to win, who you think's going to win, who you think won't win, as Darnell collects all the pylons at the exit of turn 13. And we are about to get going here once more. It's just a couple laps of GT2s left to go, and then a couple laps of GT4s, as Darnell comes across the line to get started with his first flying lap. And the GT4s have already started queuing, this time many more GT4s than before. Douglas pulled to the inside, Douglas getting a second chance to get that pole position away from Bird. Just needed a couple more tenths to take it away. And Douglas with the rare second chance to get that pole position. Douglas could be on for it, just needs to find that little bit of time, as a lot of the GT4 field is pulling to queue at the end of the pit lane. As Eggy says, the script has him getting a podium in it. We will have to find out. I would say these are not scripted, but anything can happen, as in order to get that podium, you would only really have to have a couple drivers. You know, if there's an incident at the front of the field, you could nearly have a race win. You should have Vasquez, Wagner, and Darnell all come together at turn 1, and you should just drive off into the sunset. Even though you might have to fight Harrell for that position. Or not Harrell, Harris, as we have Harrell and Harris. Darnell still invalid. Harris also invalid. No drivers on a valid lap. Pushing to get that pace. But in order to set the lap, it has to be valid. Doesn't matter how fast you drive it. If you invalidate the lap, it doesn't count. So pushing, pushing, pushing. Darnell, Harris, Vasquez, Breakfast, Rowan, and Viana all trying to get this podium position, get this pole. Whatever their goal is, they're pushing, pushing, pushing for it, and may be pushing too hard. As still, Breakfast currently up onto P1 provisional pole. Vasquez quickly demoting Breakfast down to P2 as he is next across the line. As Vasquez now currently your pole sitter, provisional pole sitter, as we have 5 minutes left, a little over 5 minutes left in this qualifying session. Leads up to about 3 or 4 laps left, as we are about 1.5 minutes per lap. Darnell still on a valid lap, looking to dethrone Vasquez, looking to take pole position. Coming out of Druids, heading up the hill towards Lodge Corner, and then coming out towards Deer Leap, not wanting to run too far wide to the outside and then validate the lap, but wanting to run far enough wide to get a good run, and moves up into pole with a 34.8, a second ahead of Vasquez. But now Vasquez has a benchmark. Vasquez knows what he needs to improve by, and he will be able to watch that delta and see what that gap is, know where he needs to improve. Same thing for all of the other GT2 drivers, as those new drivers also get a chance to get their qualifying here. As Winter now in the conversation here. Winter out on a lap, currently on a valid lap as well. Winter could be a snake in the grass in GT2. We currently did not really have one coming out of the final corner. What will it be for Winter? And as Winter comes across the line, it's enough for P3, demoting Breakfast outside of the podium for now. Breakfast still on a flying lap. Just 4 minutes left in this Q2 session, which really shouldn't exist, but, you know, could just be a sign of what's to come. Vasquez now taking quite a lot of time out of his previous time. Harris demoting Breakfast down to P5. As Vasquez now only half a second behind that of Darnell. And Rowan and Viana not having set a lap yet. Both drivers looking to get their laps set. As Rowan coming through Old Shell Corner, headed down towards Britain's. Yeah, Bird, Eggy want to race, anything can happen. Or you want to race, anything can happen to Eggy. Just joking. Appreciate you, Bird. Very happy that you are in here and hope that you get more wins tonight as you are in prime position. Bird, you know what you need to do. You just need to do it again. But Douglas, the newcomer, is definitely a threat that you need to watch out for. As Douglas only needed to improve by a couple tenths, but at the same time, that same pressure that is on you is on Douglas. Winter still up into P3. Darnell, P1 currently, P1 still. Darnell needs to buy some insurance as Vasquez is now knocking the tenths out. We'll have this lap and one more. Darnell just behind. Could be a little bit of strategy in play here as Vasquez now cuts through the chicane and falls behind Darnell. Does not want to be in front of Darnell, wants to be behind Darnell, wants to chase. Actually, Vasquez buying himself some space here, allowing Winter to go by, and then going to allow the 731 of Viana to go by, cutting the chicane once more. As Vasquez allows Viana to go by, and now Vasquez is going to be in prime position. We'll use the space between Rowan and Viana. Actually, not between Rowan and Viana, between Harris and Viana. to have some clear air to set his lap. This will be the final lap of the GT2 qualifying session, as Vasquez is building speed to have this lap be the all-or-nothing lap. Darnell did improve by 2/10 on the previous lap. And Darnell on an invalid lap will not have enough time, as the work has been put in place for Darnell. Or not for Darnell, for Vasquez. As Darnell took the Joker lap there. Darnell going to try and get back to the start-finish line for one more lap. Almost losing the car there, carrying too much speed over the curb, but Darnell knows that he needs insurance. He needs to get around. He is fighting against the clock. Just 30 seconds to make it to the start-finish line to get one more lap in. Harris also diving around, but Harris will not have enough time. Harris trying to take the Joker lap and get back around to the start-finish line before the clock runs out. Harris will be pushing it very, very close. Darnell jumps into the pit lane, not going for this lap. Winter still on a valid lap. Vasquez done. Not going to happen here as the clock comes down to 0 for GT2s. The GT4s are about to start rolling out. Harris will not improve, abandons the lap. Car number 81, Breakfast, coming across the line. Needs to improve. Currently last, not improving, pulling that car to the inside into the pit lane. And will settle for P7. Car number 333 of Winter just needs half a second to eclipse Darnell and steal that pole position away. Still likes the lap as he comes across the line. Still currently in P2. Will he improve? Does not improve. Car number 731 of Viana looking to improve. Still likes the lap, only needs a 10th. Gets it. P4 for Viana. Rowan P6. Breakfast P7. Darnell P1. As the GT4s are now onto the track. Darnell is the name of the game. I would not have felt bad doing it. Elizondo leading the charge of the GT4s out of the field. No one going for the Joker lap like Darnell was going for. Elizondo allowing Wagner and Drain to go by, pulling on into the slipstream of those drivers, maybe hoping to get a little bit of benefit out of it, or to study some racing line as they come through turn 13 and get ready to go up the hill for the kink to the left, up the hill before the kink to the left downhill into Druids. And as they come down the hill, just getting ready to finish their out laps. Elizondo now opening up a little bit of space to have some breathing room. Douglas following just behind. Harrell following just behind. Wagner first across the line. And then it will be Bird, Wagner, Drain, and then I believe Bird may be further back in terms of the lap. Wagner at the front, leading the charge. They are all still on invalid laps. I think they may have all invalidated at the first corner. Now, the pace will not be set by them. It looks like the pace may be set by Wilson, the 713 coming out of Lodge Corner. As Wilson looks to be the first car to be on a valid lap coming across the line. And what will it be? Not a valid lap yet. As they come through turns 7, 8, and 9, the Brittany's chicane. Wagner has now built up a little bit of a gap to the cars behind, as we are about to finally get started racing here in about 7 minutes time. About 8 minutes time, I would think, before we transition over to the race session. Eggy looking to move past Caligari, headed down into the turns 10, 11, and 12 chicane. Diving deep through, cutting the track, trying to get that advantage. Or maybe just trying to get out of the way of Caligari to not hinder their lap. Now Wagner leading the charge through the final corner. Not technically the final corner, but I'm going to call it the final corner before you head up the hill for the real final corner of Deer Leap. Coming across the line, it will be time to get started. Actually, that was the valid lap. We may just have a little bit of a server glitch here, as now the times start coming in. Harrell currently P1, Elizondo P2, Wagner P3, Drain P4, Mikey P5. The times have been set, but the times are not the best. Douglas now at the tail end of this field. We know that he has the pace, was previously on P2 in the quote-unquote Q1. Bird was on pole, both drivers on invalid laps, not setting a valid lap yet. Bird on a valid lap now. Douglas now trying to push. Douglas will need everything he can get to get this lap done. Now with a little bit of slipstream help from Elizondo up ahead. Currently pretty far down the order. Looking like P14, P15 now in GT4. As Harrell leads the charge, still leads the field in pole position with Elizondo P2, Wagner P3, Drain P4, Mikey P5, Wilson P6. Only a couple tenths between Harrell and Elizondo, and they have currently the top times that the majority of the field is going to be looking for, that the majority of the field is going to be attacking. As Douglas is on a valid lap on this lap, being pushed very far down the order. Not setting a lap is the last thing you want to do, especially in a qualifying session like this, but with a mess up of the server and having to do a second lap, sometimes finding that second lap is very, very hard. As Douglas comes out of the final corner, what will it be? It needs to be valid just to get him on the board. And Douglas goes up the order. It's P3. He's found some of that pace, but not quite enough. 1.3 seconds off the pace of Harrell. As Douglas goes invalid one more time. Mikey and Elizondo following behind as Elizondo bows out of the lap and allows Mikey to go by. Elizondo being on an invalid lap, being courteous to Mikey, letting Mikey get that track position. As we continue on with this session, Harrell still your leader. Bird nowhere to be found. The last GT4 to not set a lap should be coming out of the final corner with a valid lap any second now. As Bird, the previous pole sitter, before we had to reset the server, will he be able to get back up where he belongs? Up on his perch of pole position, a little bit of a wiggle of the car coming out of 16 as he comes across the line. It probably won't be the exact time that he's looking for. Still invalid. Bird desperately needing this valid lap now. As Harrell still P1, Elizondo still P2, Douglas still P3. Douglas on an invalid lap, just a couple laps left in this qualifying session. Now is the time where you start to balance the risk versus reward. You've secured a P3 so far, but nothing is secure until the clock comes down to 0. And the times from P2 in GT4 all the way down pretty much to, I'd say, P8, P9, all within a second of each other. Douglas now with another try to get a valid lap in, going much more narrow on the entry and exit of turn 1, getting a better exit of turn 1 this time, down into turn 3 of Cascades, following behind the number 3 of Drain, who is chasing behind Wagner. Drain on an invalid lap. If Douglas gets too much closer to Drain, will Drain back out of this lap and give Douglas the track position. Douglas would need it, or Douglas may try to use a little bit of slipstream here. Douglas, as Wilson goes up into P2 currently. That would be a first-time front row start in GT4 for Wilson, and it would be a first-time podium qualifying for Wilson as well. Wilson showing some speed here at Oulton Park. Harrell looking to improve, as it is now going to be this lap and one more for those drivers who are just now coming across the line. Those drivers coming across the line may barely be able to squeak out another lap after this one. So it may be two more. But from Drain on back, this next lap will be the last lap, as Drain will lead the end of the qualifying here, as Drain will be the first car that this will be their final lap. As Drain comes across, runs very wide, stays valid. Harrell P1, Mikey P2 now, displacing Wilson down into P3, but Wilson's still on the podium. Wilson will have enough time to get this lap and one more. Miller will also have enough time to get this lap and one more. Bird sets a valid lap, but it's only good enough for P6. Desperately needs to get back across the line, and I think he may just barely have enough time to do so. He will have this lap and one more if he can make it back with no mistakes. The rest of the field trying to do their best, but I think anyone behind Bird is not going to have enough time. Bird with 20 seconds left on the clock as he comes into Lodge Corner, getting some space between him and the 31 of Wayne. Now getting a big boost out of the final corner. Coming across the line, it won't be a faster lap on this lap, but he will have one more lap left to push, as car number 66 may barely have enough time as Bird goes deep into turn 1, will not improve. And now the rest of the field, car number 3 of Drain. Drain leading the charge to the line with Wagner and the 32 of Douglas in tow. Will Drain improve? Drain looking to improve. Drain does improve. P4 currently. Douglas up into P3. Wagner P5. Douglas back on the podium, not P2, but back on the podium regardless. Will be a good starting position for them. Car number 12, Norman, knocks Douglas down to P4. Norman onto the GT4 podium. Wilson looking to improve. Wilson will not improve on this lap, and that will bring an end to this qualifying session. So for real this time, Darnell in GT2, and overall your GT2 pole sitter. Winter P2, Vasquez P3, Viana P4, Harris P5, Rowan P6, Breakfast P7. In GT2 or in GT4, Harrell P1, Mikey P2, Norman P3, Douglas P4. Qualifying P2 previously getting knocked down to P4 just outside of the podium spots, but still in a good position for a good result. Wilson, the same. Another new driver in a good position to score some points or get a podium finish here. Wagner P6, Drain P7, Elizondo P8, Bird, your previous pole sitter, knocked down to P9. He does have the pace, but unable to find it in this second qualifying session. Miller, P10, Eggy, P11, Merkel, P12, Ditto, P13, Atwell, P14, Fernandez, P15, Short, P16, Patton, P17, Greathouse, P18, Wayne, P19, and Caligari, P20. As we are now just awaiting the changeover from the race to, or from the qualifying to the race, as the field is just sitting in silence waiting for the clock to kick us over. That should happen any second now. It has completely shaken up the field, Breakfast. That is entirely true. And we are now just awaiting the kickover from Quali 2 race, which should happen any second now. It is a pretty dense field. We have 27 cars out on track. Not the highest population, the highest attendance that we have done in this series. As we are just awaiting the kickover to the race session, which should be any second now. And there we go. We are set up, lined up on the track in the starting positions, ready to get this race going. And as we get on board with Darnell, we will be ready to get started here any moment now. Sure sounds like someone's already started, which would be a little bit early. No one should be started yet, but I see a little bit of hear a little bit of a low rumble as we should be ready to start here in about a minute and 40 seconds. Engines fired with 30 seconds left 30 seconds left on the timer, and then the formation lap will get rolling right around 0 because the timer will be done. And as we finally get ready to go racing here in the KTM Cannonball series, I would like to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for those of you who have used your Twitch Prime subscription. You greatly support the stream. If you have a Twitch Prime subscription or if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you have a free Twitch Prime subscription. Doesn't cost you anything. It just gives you no ads on the streams, and it does throw me a little bit of support. Also, if you are not following the Twitch channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you would. And let's have some good racing tonight. We're about 20 seconds away from engines fired. And those of you out on track and those of you tuning into the streams, make sure that you stay hydrated, drink some water, especially those of you who are going to be out on track. You can't really drink much water as there is not much of a straightaway section. This isn't Paul Ricard. You can't sit there and make a phone call, as we have Vasquez giving us some flashers in P3 just behind. I believe that is also Viana back there giving us some flashers. Actually, no, it is the P6 car of Rowan giving us some flashing lights, something I always love to see. As we are now rolling here as Darnell leads the field off the line. And immediately you see Darnell hopping on the brakes. You can look down to the telemetry on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. What that is going to show you is the telemetry of the throttle and the brake. And you see him dragging those brakes. What he's doing is trying to generate brake temperature to make sure that those brakes are nice and malleable once the cars are needing to brake when we head down to turn 1. The last thing you want to be is at the back of the field with cold brakes, and then you become a bowling ball. Think back to Hungary 2021, or it may have been 2022, I don't remember. I want to say it was 2021. Or maybe a Lance Stroll at Suzuka. There's plenty of bowling ball moments. Or you could get your brakes too hot, and you could be a Lewis Hamilton 2021 at Baku and just go straight on. But we've got ABS, so unlike a Formula car, we have ABS, and you are able to mitigate that. And as Darnell leads the field into the old shell corner, we'll follow along with the GT4 field as they come on through. As we get ready now, we have had way too long to get the nerves riled up, way too long to have everybody overthink their strategy, overthink their race. We've seen people who were on pole at the start drop back down. We've seen drivers that weren't on pole, up on pole, drivers who got a second chance to redeem themselves in their qualifying session. And now we will see who will be truly on top, as we know there are drivers out there who have faster laps who are not starting at the front of the field, but they will just have to show what they've got and try their best to move up in the order, as we should be getting the 2x2 call any moment now as Darnell leads the field up the hill and then down the hill before we get to Druids. Any second now, we get the 2x2 call. There it is as Darnell pulls off to the right-hand side. Winter pulls to the left, and the rest of the field will cycle through. 2x2 going all the way back. 27 cars on track. There is not a definitive class split, so since there is an odd number of GT2s, the GT4 on pole does have an advantage as they do not have anyone to their side. And as we get ready to get started here, as we head up the hill, out of the penultimate corner, before the kink of Deer Leap, before we head up to the pit straight, ready to take the green flag for the first time tonight here in the KTM Cannonball Series Round 4 at Oulton Park. Darnell leads us to the line. Green, green, green. We are racing, but there are starting infringement penalties. Car number 66, car number 700, and car number, I want to say that was 79. Darnell going very defensive through the inside, following the rest of the field as they come through turn 1. Everyone seems to be making it clean, but there is not enough room for everybody, but we have no spins just yet as Greathouse comes off the track on the right-hand side. Eggy also to the inside, sliding across the field, holding those brakes, barely getting that car stopped before he re-entered the racing surface. Caligari also in a little bit of trouble there. We can get on board with him. Caligari with some damage on that car, but as the field moves through, Darnell still in the lead, Winter still in P2. Vasquez P3, Viana P4, Harris P5, Rowan P6, Breakfast P7, and then in GT4, Harrell still holding on to the lead. Mikey up into P2, Douglas down a position to P5 in GT4, but with a little bit of tow on the back of Wilson and Norman, may look to move forward. I think we had a GT2 abandon the lap there as someone completely knocks away one of those tire barriers. I believe that may cause some damage to the front of the car. As the field is moving through, Harrell leading, Mikey leading, Norman leading Douglas, as Douglas has seemingly got that position away from Wilson. He has as they head down to Druids. Wilson looking to the inside, will not have enough room as they head up the field. Now Douglas with a small pack of his own, leading them into Lodge Corner. Douglas looking to move forward on Norman shortly. Darnell in P1 with Winter giving chase. A small gap growing between Winter and Vasquez as they head down the hill towards Cascades turn 3. Winter is all over the rear bumper of Darnell. It is going to take a couple laps for these GT2s to warm up these tires as they don't have tire blankets, but we will see if Winter will be able to bring this car to the front of the field. Winter was not present in the previous qualifying session to my knowledge. So Winter with a little bit less seat time tonight than Darnell, but Winter showing that he does have the pace as those drivers with those drive-through penalties are serving them just now. The last thing you want to do is get a speeding penalty through pit lane, so as long as those drivers do not do that, they should be okay. Harrell and Mikey breaking away from the rest of the field at the front of the GT2s, or the GT4s, sorry. And Winter still all over the back bumper of Darnell, with Vasquez still a part of this battle as well. One mistake separates these drivers. One mistake drops these drivers off the podium, no matter which one it is. Harrell still leading Mikey, Norman, and Douglas. Douglas all over the rear bumper of Norman. Douglas wants this first podium tonight. May not have enough time to catch the leaders, but Douglas does have the pace. He did out-qualify both of the drivers ahead of him in that first qualifying session. Does he have enough to get past Norman here and have enough time to move up onto the rear bumper of those drivers ahead? Norman wide off the track. Mikey all on his own. Harrell off the track. Douglas being handed P2 now as Wagner now moves up into P3. I am not sure if maybe there was some contact or just ran out of room on the track, but those drivers now off the track, falling down the back of the order. Douglas up into P2, just behind Mikey. Needs to chase down Mikey, but Douglas does have the pace if he can find that qualifying pace. The track is nice and rubbered in, so he is going to be able to get those laps that he is looking for. Winter now with a mistake drops, or nearly drops, Winter out of the field. I may have preemptively called it as it looked like Vasquez may have moved past Winter, but Winter now dropping back from Darnell, and now Winter is going to be under attack from Vasquez as they head down to the short straight before the next chicane section. Vasquez now pulling to the inside, going offensive, backing out of it, trying to pin Winter to the outside. Does pinned Winter to the outside. Vasquez trying to set up this move, not available yet. The door has not opened. Harris also all over the rear bumper of Viana, but overdriving that car slightly through turn 13. Trying to move past Viana. Mikey now with Douglas in tow. Douglas breaking away from the rest of the field slightly. 3/4 of a second between him and Wagner. Wagner looking to be under attack from Elizondo and Wilson here very shortly. As now the battle for P3, battle for P2 essentially in GT2 is definitely on. Vasquez looking forward on Winter. Not close enough for the move. Heading down into turn 3 Cascades. Very easy for Vasquez to set up a good run here, but not close enough to put Winter on a suboptimal racing line. But Vasquez able to get a better exit, as Vasquez all over the rear bumper of Winter. Got an incident with car number 22, Fernandez, around, I believe, on their own, rejoining the track ahead of the rear pack of Eggy. And then car number 44, Patton, getting a drive-through for track limits. That is unfortunate for Patton this late in the race. It does take him out of contention for the spots that he was looking at currently. Mikey still leading Douglas. I'm not sure if Douglas is maybe dropping back, if Mikey is pulling away, but Douglas now with Wagner looking forward just behind Douglas here. Wagner now on the offensive. That gap much smaller than it was previously. Now the battle for P2 in GT4 is on as well. Winter still trying to hold on to this position, trying to hold on to P2 ahead of Vasquez. The longer that these two battle, the more space Darnell has to get this lead. The more that he is able to grow this lead on those drivers behind. Darnell now with a 3-second gap to those battling behind. Winter and Vasquez still locked in battle here. Vasquez looking for a move on the inside of Cascades. Will not happen, but he's all over the rear bumper of Winter as they head down towards the Old Shell corner, coming through Lakeside Bend, or Island Bend, down the Lakeside Straight. Will it be a lunge from Vasquez late into the Old Shell corner? No, it will not, but Vasquez trying a tighter line. Not getting as good of a run as Winter on the exit of that corner. Now this gap to Darnell may close slightly as Winter gets a little bit of space. Eggy off the track as Douglas, it looked like Douglas may have gone straight through just behind, but did not. Now Douglas much closer to Mikey than previously, has broken away from Wagner as Wagner is under attack from Elizondo. Elizondo looked to be potentially looking for the inside of Wagner there at Island Bend, but does not happen. Elizondo now putting the pressure on Wagner, drops Wagner out of the fight for the second spot, as now Douglas has found that pace and is looking to close this gap on Mikey. Only time will tell if he'll be able to do so, as Winter and Vasquez are moving forward, but the gap to Darnell is only growing as this battle intensifies. They are slowing each other down. It'll be this lap and one more to bring this race to a close. Winter now growing that gap on Vasquez. Car number 79 of Caligari getting a drive-through penalty. Actually, a stop-and-go 20-second penalty. This is a little bit of an odd penalty. Usually see a stop-and-go 30 seconds, not a stop-and-go 20 seconds. Could just be the size of the track here. Douglas right at that 3/4 of a second mark behind Mikey as they come through the final turns. The timing board will update that gap looking much closer than it ever has been, but Douglas actually, the gap has grown about 2/10. Douglas still trying everything he can. They will have this lap and one more to battle it out for this final spot. Winter with Vasquez all over the rear. Vasquez maybe looked for a move there into the second chicane of the lap. but I don't think he found it. But may have gotten a good run. The pressure definitely on Winter here, as he is now having to deal with some traffic. Wayne diving off the track, nearly re-entering, forcing Vasquez to check up to the inside as to avoid any potential contact, and that does open the gap, but Winter gets a poor exit of turn 16, and that may open the door back up for Vasquez. Douglas, once again, very close to Mikey, but Sector 3 seems to be a weak point for Douglas here at Oulton Park. He has closed this gap up once again. The timing boards have not updated, but he is still closer than he ever has been. As the clock comes down to 0, it is the last lap for the GT2s, but the GT4s have one more lap left. Does Douglas have enough in the car to get this win away from Mikey? Car number 79 getting another stop-and-go penalty for cutting the track. Winter now with Vasquez still in tow, but the gap has grown. Darnell dealing with some lap traffic ahead. Darnell all but has this lead locked down. Mikey still under attack from Douglas, but Douglas, just with that poor Sector 3, is not able to capitalize down into Turn 1. The fight for P3 is still on between Wagner and Elizondo. Bird lurking just behind in P5 to pick up the scraps if there are any. As Douglas comes out of Druids. Winter and Vasquez still in battle. Winter with some lap traffic of Atwell ahead. Winter forced to the inside, but the lap traffic staying to the outside. Vasquez has closed the gap, but it will not be enough. Darnell comes across the line to take the checkered flag for race 1 in GT2. Winter takes P2, Vasquez P3. Back onto the GT4 fight. Douglas not close enough to get this move on Mikey. The gap over a second. Wagner now pulling a gap to Elizondo. The top 4, even the top 5 in GT4 looks pretty set in stone. But the race is not over yet. Douglas still right around that second mark behind Mikey with Wagner in P3. Douglas doesn't look to be able to do it on this race. Not in race 1. But we still have 2 more races tonight. 2 more opportunities for Douglas. He will get a podium in his first race in the KTM Cannonball Series. But Mikey is taking the checkered flag in race 1 tonight. Douglas will bring home P2. Wagner P3, Elizondo P4, Bird P5, Drain P6, Wilson will bring home P7, Norman will bring home P8 with Harrell in tow. And then Ditto will bring home P9 with those very summer vibes colors on that KTM Crossbow GT4. Miller with Merkel. This is a battle for position as they come to the final few corners of the lap, but I don't think it will be close enough for Miller to get it on Merkel. Patton looks to be nearly going around, does get a drive-through penalty at the very end of the race, and that may hand the position to Fernandez as Patton gets that 30-second penalty added to the very end of his race, as it will just be a time penalty from here on. And Fernandez, the final car out on track to close out race 1, will finish 21st overall. As they finish in GT2, Darnell in P1 with the fastest lap. Darnell now looking to set, seems to be the pace. Darnell is known for sweeping when he gets in a good pace and a good rhythm. Is Darnell going to sweep tonight? He desperately needs it for the points, as he did not have as good of a finish at Laguna Seca last week as he would have liked. Darnell P1, Winter P2, a good finish for Winter, good points. Vasquez P3, great for both of the other drivers in the GT2 classes. They need Vasquez to get as little points as possible. Vasquez, the current points leader with a large margin. Both Darnell and Winter looking to close that gap. Mikey, P1, getting some good points there. Douglas, P2, with his first podium in the TRC KTM Cannonball Series, and I believe first podium with TRC. Wagner, P3, rounding out the podium. Elizondo, P4, Bird, the pole sitter in Q1, not able to get back onto the pole. P5 for Bird, Drain P6, Wilson P7, Norman P8, Harrell P9, Ditto P10, Miller P11, Merkel P12, Fernandez P13, Patton P14, Short P15, Atwell P16, Wayne P17, Greathouse P18, Caligari P19, and Eggy P20. The racing was on, the battles are there, especially at the very top of the order. It is not set in stone, it is not over until it's over. And the action is just getting started tonight. We move on to race 2, which will be another 10-minute sprint, this time set in the morning with a warming track instead of a cooling track. Not much track temperature will change in a 10-minute session, but in the 40-minute session tonight, it is going to be set at the current time. We are at the 7 p.m. time, and it will move on into the evening hour. The track will get a little bit darker, the track will get a little bit cooler, as Mikey in the chat celebrating his win tonight in GT4 now needs to do it again. And I believe Mikey did qualify P1 in GT4. Mikey did not qualify P1. Harrell got P1 in GT4. Harrell was on the GT4 pole, but Mikey able to capitalize. Will Mikey be able to capitalize again? Will Douglas be able to find the pace? Will Harrell be able to hold on to the pole and hold on to the lead? We'll just have to see here in race 2. As the field is set once more, we will go on board with Darnell. And we may, if anyone in the chat would like to vote, would you like to be with the GT2s for the race start or the GT4s for the race start? And Breakfast, you may be looking at that, you may be looking at a podium today if you can have a little bit more luck like that. And as we have about a minute 15 seconds before we get started for race 2, Busch has elected a GT4 start. And we will see how the GT4s go. It's a little bit more crowded back here as they are starting at the end of a field. I see you in the YouTube chat, Harvey. Thank you for tuning in the YouTube chat, but you are welcome to join the Twitch chat if you are all on your own over there on YouTube. Also, for those of you who are on Twitch, I do have a YouTube channel. All of the broadcasts, they are uploaded to Twitch, but they are on a 30-day timer on Twitch if you go over to YouTube. All of the races for the KTM series are on YouTube, and the Sunday races around that same time that the KTM series started, they will all be on YouTube, and they will be permanent. So if you would like to go back there and watch those many years in the future, you would be able to
30 seconds.
On the RetroVex channel on YouTube. I would also appreciate if you have not, if you would mind subscribing to the YouTube channel so I can get a little bit more of a presence over there on YouTube and bring more people to these races here in TRC. On board with Harrell, as we will go right along for a race start here, as we start to see the GT2s pulling away any moment now. There they go, and then we will be rolling here in GT4 any second now. And now getting a little bit of a feeling of what it's like to be in GT4 here. You are the slower class, but you get to start with the faster class right on the rear bumper. And with the staggered start that we have, you've got one directly to your side. There's a little bit of weaving, a little bit of brakes from Harold to warm those brakes, warm those tires. A little bit of the warm-up procedure here. As we look backwards, the rest of the field following suit behind. Welcome into the Twitch chat, Cole. You said in YouTube that Twitch pays. It doesn't too much, but I get a little bit of something from Twitch. I get nothing from YouTube right now, so I have to do the very high limitations of YouTube to get monetized on there, which is like 3 million watch hours and 500 subscribers, which is not impossible, but I don't have that much of a following on Twitch. It's probably not going to get too much on YouTube. And any moment now, we should have the 2x2 call by the time they come out of Druid, so here in just a few seconds. Yeah, I've heard that YouTube is the better place to be, but for now, Twitch is fine. Plus, the actual goal is to, is I may have gotten disconnected. If somebody could let me know. Oh, no, I did not. Did Harold get disconnected? I am not sure, as I will try to get back on board, as we are now 2x2. Okay, back on board with Harold. It seems like somebody got disconnected. But here as we head towards the start-finish line, as we are about to go green flag, as we will be on board with Harold here and watch the GT4 race start. Green, 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 any second now. There it is. As now Harold leading the GT4 field down into turn 1. And as we look backwards, they seem to stay pretty clean. Everyone cycling through. Eggy coming out of the pit lane. Harold going very deep into turn 1. And as the track is a little bit misleading there, but Harold may be looking at an overtake of a GT2 here, as Rowan and Breakfast are side by side with Darnell. Darnell moved all the way back to the back of the GT2 field, just in front of Breakfast, as Norman gives Mikey a bump, and your previous race winner goes off the track at the old Shell corner, rejoins, but will be at a disadvantage. I believe same thing happened to Norman there. Unfortunate for Mikey. Harold still your leader, but the rest of the field trying to cycle through. Douglas back up into P2, trying to run away from Wilson. Wagner attack on Wilson here. Wagner definitely has the inside, not fully passed, but will have the advantage heading down into the second chicane, the 11, 12, 13 section here. And then the rest of the field will cycle through. Miller looking to make a move on Norman, as Merkel following behind. Mikey now, as the timing boards update, getting shuffled down the order, but Mikey does have the pace. He's got a little bit of damage on that car, but shouldn't be too much to affect the drivability. Thank you, Cole, for gifting that subscription. I greatly appreciate it. Harold still in the lead with Douglas in P2, Wagner P3, Wilson following just behind, but Wilson did just get overtaken by Wagner. Now Wagner will look to put the pressure on Douglas, as they move forward. Hopping over to the GT2 battle, Vasquez now in the lead with Viana in tow. Darnell in P3, but where has Winter gone? Winter is down the order just in front of Breakfast and Rowan. And then Harris in that battle with Breakfast and Rowan. There may have been a little bit of contact in the GT2 field. Harris in P5 with the fastest lap. Vasquez at the front, now under attack from Viana. Viana moving up, and Viana with a good run, maybe found some pace, figured out the track a little bit. All over the rear bumper of Vasquez. This is the fight for the overall lead and the fight for the lead in GT2. As Viana and Vasquez fighting up the hill. Viana fully in the slipstream, maybe close enough for a move down here into Druids. It's a hard braking zone, but not too hard of a braking zone. Will not open the door for the dive bomb as Viana's still trying to hold on to the toe of Vasquez. Darnell now back in this battle with Winter at the very back, just waiting to pick up the scraps, currently in P4. Viana goes very wide, gets a little bit of a twitch. Darnell looks to the outside. The door has opened, but Darnell is going to have to walk around it the wrong way as he will try it around the outside at turn 1. Braking a little bit later, goes for the cutback as they head down through turns 2 and 3. Darnell will have to try it around the outside again as Darnell now gets fully across Viana, and Darnell shuts the door at the apex. Now Darnell looking to take this fight forward to the first position of Vasquez. A great move from Darnell to slice through Viana's defense and now puts the pressure on Vasquez as Darnell looks to bring this pace back. Looks to take his rightful spot at the front of the field as he did so in race 1. Car number 81 of Breakfast off at the old shell turn, the old shell corner, but in the midst of the GT4 field finds a hole to get through and is able to get back on track. Darnell looking to run away from Viana. Darnell is running away from Viana and closing that gap on Vasquez. Harrell still in P1 with Douglas in P2. Wagner P3 with a GT2 of Breakfast disturbing this battle slightly. Cole giving away a lot of subscriptions here to number 9er. Wilson, as Drain and Elizondo both go wide in their battle. Wilson may be able to pick up the scraps here as Wilson goes to look on the inside of Drain. The door has opened slightly. Wilson yet to walk through it, eyeing the inside. Drain defensive. Wilson will look for the move. It will not happen, but Wilson still definitely in this battle, getting a good run to the outside, forcing Drain to go defensive. Now Drain is going to open this gap to Elizondo as Wilson still looking for the move, goes for the dive bomb down into turn 16 as Drain will now get the cutback, the old switcheroo as Drain moves back across Wilson side by side across the line. Drain now gets fully back ahead and Wilson slots back into this position, but they have both lost a lot of time to Elizondo. Harrell still your leader in GT4 with Douglas in P2. Wagner P3 in GT2. Darnell in the lead. Vasquez maybe made a mistake at the very back, or not the very back of the field, but back in front of Harris. I may have missed this battle, but Vasquez down to P4. P4 in GT2. Harrell still your leader. Douglas still P2. But the battle rages on between Drain, Wilson, Bird now moving into this battle. Bird not doing so well in these races. Was really good in that first qualifying session, but not able to find the pace as we move through. Cole giving away a ton of subscriptions. Thank you. As now Bird moves on to the back of this midfield pack of Elizondo, Wilson, and Drain. Wilson pushing a little bit too hard now, allowing Drain to move forward on Elizondo. As Elizondo with a gap behind Wagner is outside of the podium positions. Wagner the final spot on the GT4 podium. Vasquez may have... Did Vasquez park it? I am not sure what happened to Vasquez. I don't know if maybe he had to pit or what, but I think Vasquez may be bowing out and maybe parking this car. As Vasquez pulls to the inside, and I think it may be over for Vasquez. Darnell in P1 with a big lead, but the battle rages on in P2 for the final spots in the podium. They've all but locked their positions in, but 2 more laps to decide where they will stand. And if both of these drivers maybe race a little bit rough, it would take them out of the fight. Harrell still in P1, Douglas still P2. Wagner looking to close that gap, but will not do it yet. And now Elizondo and Drain slowly dropping Wilson. Elizondo in P4 and GT4. As Drain looking to get this position. Drain gets a much better exit than Elizondo. Contact between them as they head down the hill into the second chicane. Drain now has the advantage to the inside, but Elizondo tries it around the outside later, braking. But does that compromise Elizondo's exit as Drain is now all over the rear bumper of Elizondo. Drain looking for the door to open, does not open. This throws Wilson back into this battle. They were dropping Wilson, building a gap to him, but not yet, as that battle has brought Wilson back into it. It was nearly tears for Elizondo and Drain, as it looked like they were definitely going to have some race-altering contact there. Now, Elizondo heavily defensive to the inside of the turn 16 of Lodge Corner. Closes the door on Drain, nowhere to go. That chokes Drain up. Now Drain under attack from Wilson. Wilson looking to get this position as they head down towards turn 1. Not close enough, but it could be on for a lunge, and Wilson is known to do it. Wilson backs out this time. Drain now with a much better run than Elizondo. This is for P4 in the GT2 series, for GT4 series, sorry. The GT4 class, as they head down through Cascades turn 3. Drain well into the slipstream of Elizondo here, but how much of it do you get as they head down to the old shell bend? Wilson to the inside of Bird. Actually, Bird to the inside of Wilson. Bird going around the outside of Wilson as Bird wants to join in on this fight. Does not let Elizondo and Drain have all the fun. Drain tried it around the outside of the old shell corner, but it's never going to happen there. Now Bird is in the prime position to move forward into the front spots as he is working his way closer and closer towards this battle. As this battle goes on, it is only going to allow Bird to get closer and closer, and we know that Bird is one for opportunity. Drain clattering over the curbs, Elizondo getting a little bit of the dirt. This is pretty much textbook of what happened on the previous lap, as Elizondo got a poor exit, Drain got a better exit, but the door is just closed, nowhere for Drain to go to use that extra speed. Darnell still P1 in GT2 with Winter following behind, then Viana, as they are moving past some lap traffic. Harrell still your leader, Douglas still P2, Wagner P3, but the battle rages on for P4. Elizondo having opened the gap slightly, overdriving the fronts. How much will that affect his exit speed down the pit straight? The race is not over yet as they come across the line. One more lap to fight it out. Elizondo with Drain in tow. Bird waiting to pick up the scraps. This is the Bucky's battle. I don't remember who all the Bucky boys are, but this is the Bucky's battle. Drain out of Cascades. Needs a great exit. Needs to build up as much speed on Elizondo as he can. As they head down to the old shell corner, will the move be on? Drain inching ever so much closer, using that slipstream to his advantage. Hard braking zone. Drain will prioritize the exit, forcing Elizondo on the inside. Drain diamonding the corner, looking for the cutback, does not find it too early on the throttle, twitches the car. Darnell takes the win in GT2, Winter P3, Viana P4, but all the action is here in P4 and GT4 as Drain looking to get this move away, get this position away from Elizondo. Down into the second chicane, Drain is not close enough yet. It would have to be a massive lunge, as Elizondo gets a poor exit of the second chicane through turn 13. Drain now has the better exit, has a little bit of room to use that extra speed. It could be a cutback, down into Druids, and it's looking to be set up that way. Drain down the inside gives Elizondo a bump, and it's a bump and run from Drain. Puts Elizondo in the wall, gives Bird the position, and Drain will run away with it. I don't think Bird was very happy with that, flashing his lights at Drain. Drain may give that position back, I'm not sure. As Drain nearly goes off the side, and Drain will come home and take the position. And Drain will take that position away from Elizondo. A little bit of a dirty move, a bump and run from Drain, but it was on the last lap. I believe there may not be the kindest of words between those drivers there, as that was a ruthless battle. Atwell on Caligari, not able to get that position taken away. Caligari will finish ahead of Atwell. Greathouse next across the line, and Short has joined in, Greathouse's teammate. I believe those two are buddies. A very eventful race 2 here, as in GT2, Darnell once again takes the win. He's got the sweep set up, as I believe Darnell also the pole position. Darnell, 2 of the 3 of the 4 parts of the pie complete. Now needs the final slice. He has won race 1, has won race 2, put the car on pole. Now needs to win race 3 to get the sweep. It is not unlike Darnell to do so. We will see if he has the ability. Darnell P1, Winter P2. Viana P3, Harris P4, Rowan P5, Breakfast P6, and Vasquez P7 after an unfortunate mistake in the race. Harrell P1, Douglas P2, another podium for Douglas in his first race in this series. Wagner P3, Drain P4 after that bump and run move on Elizondo. Bird was able to take advantage of Elizondo being pushed off the track. Bird up into P5, Elizondo P6, only losing a couple positions, but I can only assure you that he is not happy of it. Wilson, P7, Norman, P8, Mikey, P9, your race 1 leader getting involved in a lap 1 incident at Old Shell Corner, getting pushed wide, not able to get the laps, or not able to get the positions back. Fernandez, P10, Eggy, P11, Caligari, P12, Atwell, P13, Greathouse, P14, Short, P15, Ditto, P16, Merkel, P17, Miller, P18, Wayne, P19, and Patton, P20. As we continue on, race 3, the big one, the one that we have all been waiting for. This is the 40-minute race tonight. Yes, it was a little bit of a controversial move, and I can only imagine that they are having some stern discussion about it as we move forward into race number 3. The 40-minute race, the big one. It was a little bit of a rough move, but could be a Rubbins racing moment there. The bump and run, not a legal move in GT racing and sports car racing, but you know, if it's what it takes to get the position you were looking for. I mean, it was for P4. Don't get me wrong, but they were fighting hard. Not the way I would have liked to have seen it in. The move is under investigation according to Cole, as I believe there have been some emails that have been sent. Giving the position back was the right call, but I am not sure that the position was given back unless it is going to be given back in terms of the points standings at the end of the session. Well, here we are for race number 3. The big one, the 40-minute race here in the evening. The track is nice and rubbered in. There is plenty of racing to be had, and we are starting to, or in this race we will have something we have not had previously, which is going to be our class crossover. We have not had much class crossover aside from some cars involved in incidents. Now we will have the full crossover, as the leaders of both classes will cross paths at least once, maybe twice in this race. As the GT4s are a little bit slower than the GT2s than usual, it may be twice. It should happen around every 20 minutes. We may be looking at it around every 18 minutes. It takes a few laps, but now the chess strategy. We've gone from playing checkers in the 10 minutes, we are now playing chess in the 40-minute. You will start to see the GT4 cars used as chess pieces, used as pawns of the GT2s in their battles, as they will use that lap traffic, the slower traffic in a certain spot to hinder the drivers behind. I can get a GT4 start, as this is the big one in the 10-minute race. It is a little bit of a sprint to the finish, push as hard as you can. In the 40-minute race, you have to be much more conservative. You may see a more conservative start, you may see a more aggressive start, as some drivers may want to get out there as early as they can. But another thing here is longevity. The longer the race, the more crucial it is to keep the car healthy, to keep the car in one piece. 30 seconds away from the start of the formation lap here in race number 2,
20 seconds.
as we will be on board with Harold one more time, as he has now gotten that car, that KTM GT4, fired up, and we will go on board once more. Looking backwards at the rest of the field as we move forward for another GT4 start here. Good luck, drivers. Have a good race. Keep it safe. Keep it clean. Once again, if you are both spectating or you are driving, make sure you stay hydrated. If it's a 40-minute race, it's going to be a long time. We don't have drink buttons in these cars like some of those race cars do. So, no, Kimmy, you will not have the drink. Make sure that you get it before we get going. Green flag. I know it's a little bit easy when you're racing to go slack jaw and just kind of hang your mouth open. Your mouth does get dried out, and then you're in the middle of a battle. You really want some water or beer or whatever you're drinking, because some of our racers do need a little bit of liquid courage in these races, as we are on board with Harold warming these tires. Yes, to some people's surprise, the drink button on your steering wheel, since it is a replica steering wheel, it does not actually work, sadly. I have tried. It has not worked for me. It may work for you, but I have not been able to get the drink button on my... I have not been able to get the drink button to work on my sim wheel. As we are on board with Harold here, leading the field, or leading the GT4 field, that is. As these little, I want to say 4-cylinder KTM GT4s. The GT2s, I don't remember if they have V6s or V8s, as Harold takes out the inside pylons at turn 13. I guess they are not needed. See, you say that, Cole, and I'm sure that somebody has already done it. I would be very surprised if someone has not put a drink button on their sim rig. Now, what may come through the drink tube, I don't know. There are people who drive their sim rigs with helmets on. I mean, gloves I can understand, because your hands start to hurt, especially when you're doing endurance races, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, if you're doing long stints, things like that. As we get kicked over to the P1 car of Darnell, try to get us back on board with Harold, but we may ride on for the race start. If I can't find Harold, we'll right on board with Douglas for the race start. And as we get ready to take the green flag once more here in race 3 of the KTM Cannonball Series round 4 here at Oulton Park. Douglas going very hard early for the move, gets P3 in GT4, albeit momentarily as he has Norman on the inside, looks to clear. Norman will try it around the outside, will have to try it around the outside. Wilson goes wide, hangs on to the position though, but he is out landscaping, lawn mowing in the British countryside, as he will be very much at a disadvantage at the exit of the corner. Car number 47, Miller, off the track. Car number 3 of Drain, also off the track. Unfortunate for Drain, as he will be at the very back of the field. Harrell still your leader. Mikey P2, Douglas P3. Harrell survived lap 1 this time. So did Mikey, so did Douglas. The battle is on for the win in GT4, and the rest of the field cycling through nicely. We've had a little bit of an incident at the start as Douglas now goes for the early move on Mikey. Mikey defensive, forces Douglas to commit to that move. Douglas eats that curb like he's starving, like he hasn't had anything to eat, and Douglas moves up into P2 very early. Douglas extremely aggressive with these moves, getting past Mikey. Now this is definitely going to be a battle here in GT4 for these spots on the podium. Douglas trying to move forward, needs to get that position away from Harrell, as Mikey has been the only one that he's had to deal with really in terms of battles for the lead. As now Douglas very defensive on the inside down into Lodge Corner. Mikey does hang it around the outside later on the brakes, as this has been Douglas's trouble corner. Elizondo sliding that car through the exit of Lodge Corner. Douglas with that poor Sector 3, that final corner, turn 16, being all of the trouble that Douglas has needed to keep him away from that win. That turn 16 gives Mikey back the P2 on the podium, and Douglas sliding that car a little bit, now under attack from Elizondo, as Elizondo looks to get this move done, forcing Douglas defensive on the inside, will cut back across and be defensive into the old shell corner. And Douglas now far enough ahead as Elizondo tries to be on the attack down into the chicane of Brittany's. Elizondo still in tow, but the battle behind between Norman and Wagner rages on. Bird looking to get into that battle as well. Norman defensive, Wagner getting the cutback, thinks better of it, just backs back into the line with Norman, as the GT4 battles are very on. As Norman, I'm not sure if maybe there was a little bit of influence there, but Norman straight on at the exit of turn 12 goes straight into the wall. Damage to that car guaranteed, as now Atwell and Wilson are battling behind. Wilson gets past Atwell down into Druids. Unfortunate for Norman. I'm not sure how much that has hindered the drivability of that car. I don't think it is going to help it very much. Now maybe under attack from Wilson here very shortly. In GT2, Darnell still your leader. Winter P2, Viana P3. Vasquez, I think maybe with a unfortunate start, having backed out of the session, as Vasquez has parked that car, put it on the trailer. He is done for the night. That gives all of these drivers a little bit of a promotion in terms of position. Car number 22 of Fernandez with damage to that car, I believe. A little bit of damage. Back onto GT4, Harrell all alone in the front with Mikey. Douglas P3 has broken free of the grasp of Elizondo for the time being. Wagner and Bird now in this battle. Eggy jumping on to the very end of the battle. I think this track and car combo just may not have been it for Vasquez, and he has put it on the trailer, as well as Miller, and I believe Drain has not put it on the trailer, but Miller did put it on the trailer. And Darnell coming through Lodge Corner. Winter under attack from Viana at the penultimate corner before they come through Deer Leap, the short kink of turn 17. Harris fully in the position to take advantage of any sort of battle between Winter and Viana. We will see if Harris will be able to take advantage of that battle. Harris definitely with the pace, no damage on that car, just a little bit of a poor start. Looking to move forward and get involved in that battle. Mikey just following behind Harold. Douglas moving forward. Douglas with more time to get this position. Still on the podium, running away from Elizondo a little bit, opening that gap, but he has been known to close this gap on Mikey, and then Mikey needs to close this gap on Harold. If Mikey and Harold start battling, all that does is open that door wide open for Douglas to push, but as I say that, Douglas is around at turn 3 Cascades, and Douglas completely around. That has ruined Douglas's race. It is not over yet, but that hard contact of the inside wall, damage to his car, and now Douglas is all but taken out of this battle for the podium position, potentially for the lead, but now it's just going to be for points as Douglas will try to limp that car through the rest of this race. I don't know if he's got enough damage to keep that car in race conditions. Still seems like he's got some pace in it, but unfortunate for Douglas. Very good finishes so far. Thought he may have had a chance for the win, but unfortunate for Douglas. Will not happen tonight. Elizondo now gets promoted into the podium position. I don't think Douglas had any help with that, but now Wagner looking to move forward on Elizondo as the field is starting to get set. Winter ahead of Viana, ahead of Harris. The gaps between these drivers closing ever so slightly, but they are closing. Just 0.8 of a second between Harris, Viana, and Winter. If Viana and Harris start to battle, that will open the door for Winter to run away with the P2. Probably not going to catch Darnell, as Darnell is in prime position to sweep. The race is not over yet, but Darnell is all on his own in no man's land at the front. Will be catching the tail end of the GT4 field before too long. Drain got involved in a turn 1 incident, I believe. Car number 19 of Merkel with Drain following. Drain with some damage on that car, very much damage on that car. And just looking to bring this home. Should still have the pace to get past a few of these drivers, but unfortunate for Drain. The bad luck striking for Drain, but the points finish is not out of the conversation. Wilson in a battle with Norman currently. Wilson looking to maybe dive on the inside at the second chicane as Norman goes very narrow to the inside. Two tires on the dirt once again as it comes to turn 13. Wilson all over the rear bumper of Norman. Norman trying to defend this P6 in GT4 as Wilson is looking to move forward. Wilson showing some pace, but being very aggressive, not necessarily able to capitalize on that pace. But as they head up towards Lodge Corner, Wilson with a good run. And then hard braking down into Lodge Corner. Wilson not quite getting as good of an exit as Norman and will just follow behind. Darnell now starting to catch the very end of the GT4 field as he starts his lapping procedure, as the difference in pace will cross the leaders. They will cross paths at least once, maybe twice in this race. As Darnell goes past Caligari. Winter now on his own, as the battle between Harris and Viana may start to spark up here shortly. Harold still in P1, but Mikey has pressed forward, broken free of Elizondo. And now just 3/4 of a second between Harold and Mikey. The battle for the lead could be on any moment. Something to very much keep in mind as Harold goes a little bit wide at the exit of turn 12, coming through turn 13. We'll see if the timing boards update here at Sector 3. Mikey just holding his gap behind Harrell. It is not growing, but Mikey is in a good position to potentially take this lead away from Harrell, fight for this win. Elizondo in P3, final spot on the podium, as he is looking to close the gap. Currently in no man's land. Bird also in no man's land. Then Eggy falling off the tail end of Bird and Elizondo. Norman and Wilson still in battle. Norman trying to break the grasp of Wilson, but Wilson does not seem to be one to let go, as Wilson just trying to hang on to the toe of Norman, stay in this battle. Wagner down. Actually, I was going to say Wagner was ahead of Atwell, but Atwell seems to have gotten past Wagner. I don't know if maybe there was a mistake going wide. Douglas has moved back up. He is currently just behind Wagner, but that damage not good for that car, not going to help the car at all, but showing that he has the pace, showing that he is someone who can bring the fight, put a new car up on the podium as he has done so twice tonight. The race is not over yet. The podium is not necessarily out of the question, although it is severely unlikely, but great performance from Douglas so far. The unfortunate loss of the car at turn 3 Cascades, but Douglas showing that he does have the pace to compete. Harris moving forward on Winter as he has broken free of Viana, moved past Viana, broken free of Viana, and now Harris is trying to use his pace to close in on Winter. That gap being 2 seconds, a large gap to Darnell ahead, who just needs to run a perfect race, and he will have this done. But now the trouble starts to come as he has now got to navigate through lap traffic of the interclass communication here, as he goes past Fernandez and is looking to move past Drain by the time they get down to Camp Lodge. 2 tires in the grass, a little bit of a pass in the grass for Darnell before they get down to Lodge Corner. And then heading up the hill to the front straight. Now it is going to be very busy for Darnell, as he does not have much of a gap between each of the GT4s ahead of him. And that is true. Here in about 10 minutes we will be looking at the very beginnings of tire wear, and this being a more technical track, a little bit harder on the tires, we may start to see that take more of an effect. Now the gap between Harris and Winter has dropped a second. It was 4 seconds, now it is 2 seconds. And the gap from Darnell and Winter closing slightly as well. But a very crucial part to this battle as Harris goes wide at the old Shell corner. And I think Winter may have also made a mistake, but Winter all in the inside as Darnell has made a mistake. I don't know what happened to Darnell, but this gap has shrunk very, very much. Maybe got caught out by some traffic. Darnell now with Winter just behind and Harris just behind. The battle for the overall and GT2 win here, or the GT2 lead, is all of a sudden very much back on, as the traffic has played a crucial role in Darnell. He has definitely lost that lead that he had on Winter. Still over a second and a half, but the traffic not helping Darnell one bit. He's got a slight break in the traffic before they start to deal with some more. But Darnell now trying to get past what looks to be Norman as fast as possible, and use Norman as a pawn in the battle between him and Winter, as Norman now in a little bit of a hindrance of Winter, but Winter moves past very easy. Mikey is the leader in GT4. Mikey has made that move And now Mikey looks to do the same as Darnell, looks to run away with this lead. Harrell is not out of the fight though. While he has conceded the lead, is not out of the fight, could move back forward on Mikey. As they were talking about earlier, the tire wear factor, something that we had not seen in the previous race, could be a big factor in the finishing order, as some drivers may deal with the tire wear a little bit different than others. As Darnell is coming through more traffic, Winter now able to take advantage of the traffic, kind of helping him a little bit, giving him a door to go through that maybe Darnell did not have. And that gap is dropping still. It was down to 1.5 seconds, now back up to 1.8. And then Harrell still following behind Mikey, a little bit misleading the camera looking up the hill from Cascades towards the first turn. And Mikey looking to run away with the GT4 lead. Winter now with Atwell at a slight hindrance into turn 1. Darnell making it past Wagner, as the leaders will cross paths very shortly. But we've got a battle here in GT4 between Eggy and Wilson. Caligari not necessarily in that battle, but Wilson has made it past Eggy. Or actually, Eggy may be looking to move forward on Wilson here, as traffic being the topic of discussion here in race 2, or race 3, sorry. As traffic, especially battling traffic like Darnell has ahead, Eggy moving past Wilson, forcing his way through, and Eggy is around. I don't know if there was maybe some netcode contact there, but Eggy has gone around at the exit of turn 12, and now he is dropping back in the positions. I don't know if maybe it was contact from Darnell moving through or what, but Wilson now able to take advantage of the gap opening up, now not having to battle anyone, just focusing on his lap. But Darnell making quick work of the lap traffic, now with a little bit of open air to press his lead. But Winter also making it through, also in that open air. Winter able to freely lap. We know that Darnell has the fastest pace, but as the tire wear starts to build up here, we have not reached the eclipse of the tires yet, which starts right around the 25-minute mark. So when we have about 15 minutes left of the race, we will start to see some of that tire wear become a factor. Gap back to 2.2 seconds. As Darnell with open air, we'll see if he grows that gap or not. Car number 87 of Rowan moving through some traffic. Rowan in battle with Breakfast. Ditto abandoning the track to let the lapping cars go through, but Rowan and Breakfast in battle here as they come down through turn 3 at Cascades. Breakfast fully in the slipstream of Rowan as they head through Island Bend down into the old shell corner. Rowan defensive against Breakfast. Breakfast, is he close enough for the move? Not yet. Just a couple tenths between them, but Breakfast has this move on the table, but is he able to take it as they head through the chicane of Brittany's? Merkel missing the apex of the chicane there, and then heading down the hill towards the second chicane of the 10, 11, 12, and 13 section. Rowan opening up this gap slightly. And then as they head into Mikey in the lead, nearly loses the car, sliding it completely. Harrell, now that door has reopened. Mikey is not going to have anywhere near the optimum speed that he would if he came through at regular pace, and maybe that tire wear is taking an early effect. Harrell now seeing that door open with a bit of a second wind, flashing those lights saying, hey, it's not over yet, I'm still coming. And as Harrell pushes forward, that gap has closed up a lot. compared to where it was. Mikey was running away with this lead earlier, but now Harrell in the offensive position as they head down towards the second chicane. Harrell all over the rear bumper of Mikey. The move could be on here as they head down towards the chicane. A look from Mikey, or a look from Harrell onto Mikey, forcing Mikey to go defensive as Mikey goes wide. Harrell gets the better run out of 13 as they head up the hill and then back down once more towards Druids. Harrell looking for the move, flashing the lights, trying to force the mistake, force the pressure, as Harrell is now all over the rear bumper of Mikey. The move could be on down into Lodge Corner. Turn 16, still flashing those lights. Harrell points the nose on the inside saying, hey, I am close enough, trying to force Mikey to go defensive. Mikey takes the racing line, not falling for it just yet, but as they head up the hill through Deer Leap, across the start-finish line at the pit straight, heading down towards turn 1. Will Harrell be able to maybe get a move down into Cascades? It's all got to be on the exit of turn 1. Mikey gets the better exit. The gap is growing slightly, but Harrell is still there, and Harrell will have some slipstream as they head down the Lakeside Straight towards Island Bend. Harrell seems to be the one with the better exit, but Harrell will have the tow all the way down. Harrell not close enough, but the leaders now crossing paths as Darnell in GT2 looks to disrupt this battle. Backs out of it slightly. Harrell diamonding the corner, going high to get a better run on the exit, but Darnell allowing this battle to happen, goes ahead and goes for the open door as Winter is now fully in this battle. It's like Valencia in the Maserati series. All 4 of the top 2 of both classes cycling through the field. This is great stuff here. As Darnell trying to run away from Winter, Mikey trying to run away from Harrell. All 4 of the leaders, or all 4 of the leading battles in the screen, in the frame in one time. Now they have cycled through, and I believe that is going to be a clip just like it was at Valencia. The top 2 fights for the top 2 positions in both classes, all in one frame. And with 17 minutes left in the session, I don't believe that is going to happen again. Now Mikey still under attack from Harrell, but in GT2, Darnell with Winter much closer than previous, but now the clean air is in front of Darnell. They have made it past that traffic. Winter going wide at the exit of turn 1 will hinder the exit speed. In GT4, Mikey with Harrell still following behind. Mikey may be pulling away slightly, but we are inching ever so much closer towards that tire fall off time. Here in a couple minutes, a couple laps, we will start to see the effects of that tire wear as Douglas gets a drive-through penalty for track limits and Norman gets a stop-and-go penalty. Harrell inching ever so much closer towards that potential move for the lead as he looks to take that lead back. Harrell starting on pole in all 3 races tonight, not able to capitalize. I don't think he was able to finish on the podium in any race tonight. He may have finished on the podium in race 2, but as they head down towards the second chicane, Harrell is closer than he ever has been before, setting up Mikey wide to the outside. Will he cut back across? No, he will not. Harrell holds his line, holding the racing line, looking to get the better exit. Harrison, the GT2, looking to move past this battle as they come through turn 13, go up the hill, then down the hill once again through the roller coaster section. Mikey now, as Harrell pulls to the inside, Harrell gets 2 tires on the grass that will hinder the exit speed. Harris trying to go through, nearly makes contact with Mikey. Harrell would have absolutely loved that, but Harris had to back out of it. Now Harrell pulling alongside the GT2 of Harris, using a little bit of that slipstream. Now Mikey not getting too disturbed by the GT2 going by. Probably didn't realize how close he was to death there as that GT2 of Harris nearly made contact with the rear bumper of Mikey. But now Harrell fully back into this battle. This is the battle for the GT4 lead still. As they head through turn 1, Mikey trying to get a better exit than Harrell. Harrell trying to get a better exit than Mikey. Turn 1 has not been a popular overtaking opportunity, but turn 3 here is. It sets you up for the move down into turn 5, the old shell corner. As they are moving forward on some lap traffic, Mikey has grown the gap slightly. It is not as close as it was previously. Harrell diving for that move, maybe going a little bit deep. That will hinder the exit speed, but Harrell is all over the rear bumper of Mikey, and as they move forward towards traffic, that is going to be what Harrell needs, a little bit of miscoordination, miscommunication with that traffic from Mikey, and putting Mikey on a suboptimal line would all just open the door for Harrell to take that lead. Harrell fighting for everything that he can, as Harrell gets a lot of the curve that will hinder the exit speed, as Mikey now looking to move on to the back of Norman here. Harrell still behind, the gap not growing too much, and now Norman bowing out of this battle, allowing the leading duo to fight it out on their own. Mikey says, Norman says, I won't be a pawn in this, but Norman goes off the track, keeps it out of the wall, but nearly Norman with that fight there. Now back onto the GT2 lead, both battles for the lead happening at the same time as they came out of turn 1 down through Cascades. Winter has closed up this gap onto the rear bumper of Darnell. Great action in both leading battles, as now the GT2s may have a little bit of more help from Slipstream than the GT4s. Winter, as Darnell parks it on the apex of the old shell corner, Winter may go for the cutback. There's not much room for it, as you immediately have the Brittany chicane just after the old shell corner, as hard braking down into the Brittany chicane. Winter following through Darnell, very tight. The move may be set up as they head towards the second chicane here, but Darnell gets the better exit. Winter will have to set it up later on. Harrell still on the back of Mikey. That move not on just yet. Back onto the GT2 battle. Winter and Darnell. Winter all over the rear bumper of Darnell, putting that pressure on. Winter trying to take the sweep away from Darnell. Darnell with the pole position and the win in race 1 and race 2, and the pressure has gotten to Darnell. 2 tires off in the grass, and the door has opened. Winter up into the lead. Darnell falls back, but Darnell is not out of the battle, but maybe that tire wear has become a factor, as it looked like Darnell just understeered off the track. Now Darnell has to regain his composure, get that position back, get that pace back. Winter slicing through, threading the needle between the GT4s, and Darnell says, you are not closing the door on me like that, as Darnell also does the same, a little bit more risky. Darnell gets a much better exit of the final corner than Winter, and Darnell may be looking for the move on Winter as they head down towards Cascades. Does not happen, but now it's the same exact position that Winter was in the lap prior. Now Winter may park it on the apex of the old shell corner, as Eggy, some lap traffic, forces Winter to go wide. Winter is not able to go as defensive as he would have liked, and now Darnell all over the rear bumper of Winter. It is flip-flop, vice versa of the previous battle that we were looking at. Now Winter in a position that he has not been, up in the lead, not able to have that car to chase, not have that pace set that you need to chase. Now on his own with lap traffic ahead. Darnell trying everything he can to get this lead back, but they are facing tire wear and ever more degrading tires as this race goes on. Just 3/4 of the way through, the door has opened for Darnell, as Darnell looks to get the nose on the inside of Winter as they go into Druids, but Darnell forced onto the grass, not able to take that move there, but the traffic is not coordinating with Darnell, as Darnell pushes the car of the GT4 of Ditto, pushes Ditto around the traffic, not very coordinated with Darnell. Darnell not very happy about it, pushes that traffic out of the way, and Darnell is pushing, overdriving that car as you see him get a twitch of the rear out of Lodge Corner. And now the gap has opened for Winter. Darnell using a lot more of his tires there than he probably would have liked to, going wide on the outside. Do not want to push that car too hard. The last thing you want in this position is a drive-through penalty for track limits. Harrell has gotten that lead back away from Mikey, where we are on board with the GT2 battle. The GT4 battle is not done yet. They have lap traffic ahead that could become a part of this battle, but they have switched positions once more. Harrell has got that lead back from Mikey. Now needs some coordination from traffic. Drain not necessarily coordinating. Opens the door for Mikey, and Mikey may get that lead back side by side. Harrell with a suboptimal line opens the door for Mikey. Mikey was not able to get that lead there through turn 1, but the door has opened back up for Mikey to be on the offensive down the lakeside straight and into the island bend as they head towards the old shell corner. Will Mikey be close enough? Will he have that slipstream to use? It's got a little bit, but not enough to close that gap enough for Mikey to have a go at the lead once more. Just 10 minutes left in this race. Now the traffic, only a couple more cars ahead of this lead GT4 battle. They may come across some more traffic by the time they get to the very end of this race. But Harold getting a not as good of an exit as Mikey did through the Brittany chicane. Now Mikey all over the rear bumper of Harold once again. Harold getting 2 tires in the grass does not necessarily help the exit speed, but doesn't hinder it too much. Opening that gap slightly. Darnell trying to get that position back from Winter, but I think mistakes in driving the car too hard has just given that win back to Winter. Gutted for Darnell as he is 1 race away from the sweep, but Winter needs this win. I know it would mean a lot to him if he got it. Winter just needs to hold on to it. Prone to making mistakes in these pressure positions, needs to just calm his nerves, hold on to this lead. He's got some traffic to make his way through, but this would be a great win for Winter. I would very much recommend that if he wins this race, you pop over to his stream, give him some support. He streams all of these races, as most of these drivers do, but he has had some previous very funny reactions whenever he wins races. If he does the same tonight, I would expect none less, especially in a 40-minute race like this. Back onto the GT4 battle. It is not over yet. Harold with a little bit of a slide through turn 4 of Island Bend, overdriving the car slightly, as that allows Mikey to maybe get a little bit more of a run on Harold as they come through the chicane. Fernandez, the last car for quite a while, maybe the last car towards the to the end of the race that they are going to have to get by. Mikey's last pawn in his game of chess, as Harris now comes a part of this battle. But Mikey has a nose on Harold, and Harold goes around as Mikey will allow Harold to get that position back. It's a respectful fight between them, but the move was on once, was not able to get it done. Mikey braked a little bit too late, and Harold went across the nose. Now Mikey has to redo all of that work as he has some more GT2 traffic moving through. Darnell has closed that gap as he has felt the pressure. He has the assignment on his desk. He needs to complete it. He has closed about 2 seconds on that gap. It was 4 seconds at one point. Now with Winter needing to run a perfect race here to the end, cannot afford a mistake, cannot afford any sort of in cooperation with GT4 traffic, but also just needs to bring this home. Darnell still has the pace, and Darnell is ice cold in these high stress, high pressure situations. Does Winter have the nerves of steel to bring this race home, as Darnell is just in the background? Back on with the GT4 battle. Mikey now still behind Harold, but not anywhere near as close as he was prior to their contact. Darnell in P2 in GT2 still. That gap shrinking, but I don't know if Darnell will have enough time. It would need to be a mistake from Winter. Winter needs to run a perfect race here to the end. No mistakes from Winter, no mistakes allowed, as one mistake would bring Darnell right back into this battle. Rowan and Viana were battling in GT2 for the final spot on the podium. It would be a great finish for Rowan if his supporter is in here. Rowan may be looking at a GT2 podium here, and I believe it would be Rowan's first podium in this series. The gap between Harold and Mikey has shrunk once again. The gap between Darnell and Winter grown a lot as as Darnell made a mistake at the old shell corner. I think he may have just gone too deep, or maybe he's severely suffering from tire wear. Now Winter able to relax slightly. The gap has grown. The gap is quite large. You just need to bring it home. 3 or 4 more laps is what he's thinking in his head. Just bring it home. Just bring it home. Keep it clean. Just bring it home. He's got some clean air to run in. Does not need to push too hard. Just needs to bring this car home in one piece. The battle for the GT4 lead is still on, as Mikey has taken more time out of that lead of Harrell. Even more time, the gap down under 3/4 of a second, where it was 1.5 seconds at the contact. And as they have some more GT4 traffic ahead of them, the battle is definitely on. Mikey closing up more and more. Harrell may have a lot more tire wear, driving that car harder than Mikey, or the tire wear could be similar, but a little bit of miscooperation from traffic here is choking up Harrell slightly. This is where Mikey went for the move before. Mikey needs this traffic to work with him, as Harrell also needs this traffic to work with him. Wayne pulling off to the right-hand side of the track as the leading battle comes through, and that has slightly helped Mikey, as I think we may go on board for the GT2 or the GT4 battle here, as we are on board with Mikey here. If I can get on board with Mikey, get me on over there. On board with Mikey, chasing Harrell for the win here in GT4 as they head up the hill through Deer Leap across the start-finish line at the pit straight. Hard braking into turn 1, rotating the car, but I see that tire wear taking effect on Mikey, but Mikey does get a better exit than Harrell, it looks. He is green on his Delta as they hard brake down into Cascades. A little bit later braking from Mikey. Harrell goes deep, slides the car, and that may open the door for Mikey to have the run through or down the Lakeside Straight into Island Bend. Mikey has to set up this move, backing out of it at the kink, but the pressure is definitely on, and I see the tire where you hear those tires squealing as they just come through Island Bend. Shouldn't be too tire intensive, but those drivers are having a little bit of trouble. Now the gap has closed up at the exit of the old shell corner as they come through the kink down into the chicane of Brittany's. It is very much on for Mikey here, as he has got a much better exit of the chicane, but not anywhere to go with it as they head down towards the second chicane here of the turn 10, 11, 12. Mikey goes for the move once more. It's not on. Harrell almost goes around, but Mikey has got it around the outside. It's clean this time. He forced the pressure on Harrell, and Mikey has got the move, but it is not over yet. Harrell could attack this once more, and as they head down into Druids, the move might be on for Harrell. Harrell all over the rear bumper of Mikey again. As Harrell sends it completely, or he didn't send it. I think Mikey may have gone too late on the brakes, and Mikey, who fought so valiantly to get that lead back, has completely thrown it away, going deep, going off the track at Druids. And now Harrell is in the hot seat, just needs to bring this race home in one piece, as he is now all on his own at the front. Mikey is not out of the battle, but is in no place to be attacking the move, as Drain and Breakfast, two inter-class cars,
All right, man. The leader is on the final
battle
lap.
together.
The final push.
Winter on the final lap of the race, still in the lead. Darnell, after making those mistakes, Winter just needs to bring this race home, as the GT4 leaders are just a couple corners ahead of him. Mikey chasing Harrell still. He is in the background. They will have one more lap. The tire wear is definitely becoming a factor. And as Mikey goes deep, pushing that car too hard, I don't think it is going to be on for Mikey. He's got the podium, but I don't think he's got the win. It needs to be a catastrophic mistake from Harrell to give Mikey that win. And unless that comes, I don't think that Mikey will get that miracle. Same for Winter, as Winter just a few corners left to go. to bring home his first win in the GT2 class in the KTM Cannonball series. It has all lined up for Winter here. The stars have aligned. Winter, he put the work to get the car up onto the front row, but was not able to capitalize and bring it home for the win. Good for podiums, but not good for wins tonight. That changes here as he comes through Lodge Corner, heading up the hill towards Deer Leap. I can only imagine that you need to get over to Winter's stream because he is going to be absolutely ecstatic bringing home the win here in GT2. He is probably going crazy. I'm surprised he's still driving. He's usually out of the seat by now if he wins. Great race for Winter. Nice win. Darnell next across the line, bringing home P2. Rowan with Viana in tow. The battle for the GT2 podium, as Rowan may have a podium here. Rowan just needs to bring it home, going wide at the exit of the second chicane. And Viana may be in the opportunity to take this position away as they are heading down the hill towards Druids. It's hard braking for Rowan and Viana, but I think Rowan may have it. Looks to be a podium for Rowan. Elizondo locking in P3, Bird P4 in GT4. And as Rowan comes across the line, it's going to be a podium for Rowan, P4 for Viana, and Harrell. Mikey a couple corners behind, but it won't be enough unless Harrell makes some sort of catastrophic mistake right here at the end of the race. Harrell put the car on the pole, was not able to capitalize, not able to bring it home. Mikey goes off once more. And Harrell put the car on the pole, wasn't able to take it home to the win, wasn't able to bring it home in first place. That changes here. Harrell, P1 in GT4, a hard-fought P2, absolutely gutted for him. He had to move on multiple times, just was not able to capitalize on it. The one time that he was not able to bring it home. In race 3, an extremely eventful race 3, probably one of the best races of the season. P1, Winter, P2, Darnell, P3, Rowan. An absolutely astonishing podium. Darnell denied the sweep. Winter with his first win in the season. Rowan with, I believe, his first podium of the season. Viana, P4, Breakfast, P5, Harris, P6, Vasquez, P7, Harrell, P1 in GT4, putting it on the pole, finally bringing it home in P1. Mikey did get a win tonight, but did not get the win that he wanted, the win that he fought so hard for. Mikey, P2, Elizondo, P3, Bird, P4, Wagner, P5, Atwell, P6, Wilson, P7, Merkel, P8, Ditto, P9, Greathouse, P10, Short, P11, Fernandez, P12, Drain, P13, Eggy, P14, Wayne, P15, Norman, P16, Douglas, P17, Caligari, P17, Miller, P19, and Patton, P20. The standings should be updated tomorrow, but this has definitely shaken up the standings, especially in the GT4 series. I am extremely excited to see where these drivers line up at the end of the series. Thank you, Cole. This is probably one of the better streams that I have done. Extremely wild finish. Wild finishes in both of the classes. Drama all the way up and down. I'm sure you guys have made some good clips. Hope to see the clips tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the stream. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Greatly appreciate the support from all of you guys. Thank you, Cole, for all of the subscriptions that you gifted. Definitely helped me a lot. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you on Sunday for the next round of the GT3, GT2 series, hopefully with some more rain. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you on Sunday. How do you get in on this event? So you need to join the TRC Discord, or if you are not able to get into the TRC Discord, go on SimGrid and look up the Racing Club on SimGrid. It will get you access to the sign-up pages for all of the events that TRC is hosting. So if you go on SimGrid, you can see the Sunday GT3 series, the Wednesday KTM multi-class series, and the Friday Summer GTO or SRO GT series. as well as all of the EU series as well. I will post a link to the Discord in chat. Well, very glad that you could be here supporting Winter. It was as good a day to support Winter as you could have ever come, as Winter has definitely been showing that he has the pace to bring the fight for the front of the field. If you would like an opportunity to join the Discord Refined, there is the link to the Discord. Now, thank you everybody for tuning in. Have you all a great night, great racing. I hope that you guys made a bunch of clips tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the drivers for racing, and everybody have a great night.